or against certain articles. And
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year, and welcome to the first Board of Selectmen meeting of 2019, the January 9th meeting. Selectman Knox, would you lead us in the Pledge of the Flags?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will be joined by Selectman DeKosovich. Selectman Carr is on a well-deserved vacation. On the docket for tonight, 6:30 organization Pledge of Allegiance, read mail. 6:35, three items under town departments. First one, police appointments for a patrol officer. Second one, police and fire public safety strategic plan update with Team Training Associates. And the last one, hire procurement for a Bobcat skid steer loader. 7:10, inputs, updates. First up, public input, then members' updates, then selectmen goal updates, which actually can relate into the next two categories, which is at 7:15. First up, master plan update steering committee is here to give us an update. Second, economic development committee, and we're going to have a discussion with them on what's cooking on their side. And from our perspective. 7:45, affordable housing update. That has been rescheduled because this past Saturday we had budget Saturday, but we weren't able to finish through all the agenda items there due to the snow. So we're actually going to take up those extra items under the FY 2018 budget update. So we'll skip affordable housing and go right into the budget update, which will include those items. And then after that, nope, that's been rescheduled as well. Nagog Hill Orchard lease has been, no, wait.
We're doing that
We're
tonight.
doing that, that's
Yeah.
right, we are doing that one, sorry, apologies. Nagog Hill Orchard lease is up, and then one-day entertainment license for Gallery Cafe 529. And we'll close out at 8:45, right on time with minutes approval. All right, so let's take a look at the mail. We've got a few good pieces of mail here, and maybe one not so good.
Okay, Madam Chair, first, in the mail packet, I included a couple of press releases that had been issued since the board's last regular meeting. We met on the 12th of December, and since then, a couple of things. First, the state's Economic Assistance Coordinating Council voted on December 13th to approve the tax increment financing, TIF, agreement that the board had reached with Patriot Beverage for the former very fine Sunny Delight property at 20 Harvard Road. And town meeting had approved that TIF agreement in November. The welcome development was that the state board approved a state investment tax credit for the Patriot Beverage that was much higher than we'd anticipated. I think we'd estimated it might be around $100,000. It ended up being $625,000 in state investment tax credits. And they, I have to say, they loved the story of how a facility that had been open for 85 years and was an iconic part of the community, a bottling manufacturing plant that closed, that the town officials worked with the business and with the new owner who was trying to find a permanent owner, and carried out the vision of seeing that that bottling function was continued there. The state loved the story. There's interest expressed in having the governor come out for an event when it's appropriate, so we would very much look forward to that.
Very good.
Another award that was made by the state that benefits the town. There was a community compact grant award for $50,000 to the Magic subregion of MAPC that we're a part of, for a stormwater collaborative, a regional stormwater approach. And now Littleton has been a part of the Northern Middlesex Stormwater Collaborative for some years at the invitation of that regional planning agency based in Lowell. But many of our fellow Magic communities were not dealing with, had not been dealing with stormwater. Boxborough, for example, is brand new. And so the need existed for all of the communities in this area to see what we can do and work together to address the new MS4 stormwater permit and maybe achieve some economies of scale. So it's great that the state grant occurred. We actually, we applied for $100,000, we got 50 from the state, but MAPC came up with another 40 to help close the gap with district local technical assistance funds. So that project will be proceeding soon. We have a couple of letters of resignation that we've received from Barbara McCrae, from elected position on the Littleton Housing Authority. We thank Barbara for her service, and also from Peter Yap, who is a member of an appointed member of the town's agricultural commission. And I wanted to say in particular regarding the Housing Authority vacancy that there, I've been working with Lisa Larrabee, the Housing Authority Executive Director. She reminded me that there was a change in state law 2.5 years ago that encourages Housing Authority tenant to serve on local Housing Authority boards. And while the law speaks of the state agency, DHCD, issuing regulations so that a Board of Selectmen can appoint Housing Authority member, tenant as a LHA member. The state hasn't released those regulations yet, so we can't carry it out that way, but there may be an alternative way to do it, in which I'll be meeting with the Housing Authority this Friday morning to explore, and that would be that there is interest from a number of the Housing Authority tenants to serve on the board. My suggestion is, well, maybe if they could caucus and, decide amongst themselves who they'd like to represent them, then perhaps the Housing Authority and the Board of Selectmen could jointly fill and make an appointment of that individual so that you had an incumbent running for an elected position. The remainder of the term will be on the ballot in May, and then the question is, between now and May, is there an opportunity to perhaps fill it with a tenant? And I've been asked to meet with the Housing Authority to discuss that, and I'd be glad to bring back a recommendation.
Yeah. I take it as a plus that there are more than one individual tenant interested, so I don't know if I'd be discouraging them from. Open process. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, let them all come forward if they want.
Yeah, that could be as well. So, and so we're gonna meet with the Housing Authority. The town clerk has posted the position as one that would be filled by election. So that's sometime, and with respect to filling the vacancy, sometimes I know when we have more applicants than there are vacancies to be filled, that it's tough for us to decide who of the multiple candidates is the one you choose. So that's
The nature of the beast?
Yes, it is indeed. So so we're going to talk with the Housing Authority on Friday and with the tenants and see if they have a suggestion on how we want to proceed. So
Great.
we'll report back to the full board. We have, and then we just have notices of a couple of upcoming events. The Littleton Country Gardeners typically use the Littleton Common for their annual plant sale, which is the day before Mother's Day, which is usually Election Day, but it's not this year, because Election Day is the 6th, and the day before Mother's Day is the 13th. So for those of you running for office who wanted to get a Mother's Day plant,
Those are different days.
Pre-buy.
you have to work out, yeah, you can pre-buy. And then we have a request from the Harvard Firefighters Association about a memorial bike race route, which again would go through Littleton, and that event is scheduled for June 3rd.
Okay, on those last two, we just check in with, fire, police.
Yeah,
etc.
we'll check in with the public safety personnel and others to coordinate that. And that's it.
Excellent. All right, first up, under town departments, police appointment. for a patrol officer. So Chief Jesse Bowen, if you want to come down here, and Chief, maybe you can give us some background on why we need to make this change.
Sure, Patrolman Budka, excuse me, resigned his position as a patrol officer to take a position as an investigator for the Federal Investigative Service, I believe it is, so he's going off to work for them at this point in time. As you recall, Jesse was appointed to full-time to the dispatch desk only a couple months ago, and so this transition's occurring a little quicker than not quicker than we hoped, but quicker than we envisioned. Jesse has worked for us, excuse me, since 2015 as a reserve police officer. He's actually fulfilled all the training he needed to actually become a patrol reserve officer. He's worked on the road. He's always been somebody that the department's found we can rely on. He comes in, he volunteers for every project that we do. He's bailed a lot of officers out of, when it's getting tight out there, especially when we've been running a couple people short with maternity leave or injuries or things like that. He's always been one to step forward and really has taken an active role in the community already, even just as a reserve officer. So I feel we're gonna have to send Jesse to the academy, which would start the end of January. And so we wouldn't really see him back on the roads again until June at this point. But he's scheduled to start at the Methuen Academy January 30th, obviously with the board's approval. So with, I guess for right now with that, we'll let the board ask Jesse whatever they want.
Sure. All right, and I remember, so true to your word, because I remember during the interviews you said you wanted to really be active in the community and really get out there, so that's great. Maybe I'll just go first with just some basic questions. So right now, you're one of our communications officer. How's that going, or how's that been going?
I enjoy it. I've worked a lot of different shifts. You're doing the overnight shift right now. I enjoy it. It's a little quiet, but it's where they need me, so that's where I am right now, and I've been enjoying it. It's fun.
He volunteered when we lost the officer up on late nights. He volunteered to go fill that shift. So what it did is let us position another dispatcher, so we only have 2 overtime shifts currently open, even though we have a 4-shift gap because of what the dispatch union did but he volunteered to go to late, so again, speaks to
Eagerness and willing to put in the put in the extra effort, exactly, Team Flair, you got it. And how do you feel about this move?
Very excited, very ready to get on board, and been wanting to do it for a while, so it's exciting.
All right, so any questions?
No, to your point, you've been in front of us. We've I know that when we interviewed you in the past, we had some good reports from Westminster and obviously from the folks you work with. So I really don't have any questions. I think trust the chief's judgment here and deputy chief, and I think it's a nice opportunity for us to promote from within.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with all that. You're already familiar with the community. You're leaving a good impression in your wake, and that's good. You've had some opportunity to do cruiser shifts already as a reserve. Yeah, how much of that, Jesse, have you?
Probably 20, 25 shifts or so.
Yeah.
As many as I can get, basically.
Good, at different times of day?
All different times.
Yeah.
Mostly overnight. That's where most guys would rather just not work it, and so
Right.
I have no problem working on it, so whatever I can do, you know.
All right, well, hope to see you on the road, but not then.
Are you still taking the courses at, what is it?
I am. I had to take a little bit of a leave just because I have a 2-year-old at home, and he's strong-willed and crazy, and so I do what I can to help my wife with that. I'm trying to get back into it, hopefully, after the academy
That's the academy.
finish up that.
Yeah, that's all, because we've already went through this not too long ago, so.
Exactly. Okay, if no other questions or comments, then I'd look for a motion.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to promote full-time communications officer and reserve police officer Jesse Bowen of Fitchburg as a full-time patrol officer.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We're not doing motion number 2 today.
Oh, okay. Very good.
He had it out.
Do we have to appoint Woodcock?
We don't
No,
tonight.
no, it's
Actually, I might as well stay down front
Not
anyways.
ready.
We're going right back, so.
Okay, moving right along, into 2B, or not 2B, Public Safety Strategic Plan.
That was
I can't help
Couldn't
it.
help it.
All right, so we are joined by Team Training Associates. Maybe we first have to get some introductions from yourselves. That would be wonderful.
Sure, my name is Eric Murray, I'm the president of Team Training Associates. I have an extensive law enforcement background, past 31 years. I met up with the respective chiefs over here about a year ago. They were referred to us by some of your partner towns, and, helping them along with their strategic plan, so, from Connecticut.
I'm Charlie Coiro from Connecticut as well, one of Eric's associates. I've been doing strategic planning for about 26 years. And so he brings me on when we're doing these kind of efforts.
So did you both drive to Connecticut tonight?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Well, thank you very much for your time.
No problem.
If I may, Madam Chair, real quick, when we originally were looking, obviously, we went through a process, it was put on an RFP and things like that. I had run into Team Training because of, they've done Bedford, Arlington, Reading, they've done many departments we knew. They do C4RJ, they did C4RJ, which is that, consortium group we work with on the criminal
Restorative justice.
diversion, restorative justice. So, I knew of them and I knew of the product that they brought out, so it was really good that their RFP came in at the lowest out of the group, so it was nice that way. And also, I like the diversity, because there's one law enforcement and one career Coast Guard. So,
Oh, great.
very different, diverse. It's not just a law enforcement person or a firefighter and things like that, so there's different views that come into building this.
One of the other associates that was with us on the fire department outside is not here, is the assistant chief to a fairly large-sized fire department down in
That's great.
East Hartford.
Fantastic. So you've partnered with some good experts with a variety of experiences that were trusted and known references as well. Okay, well done, well done. All right, why don't you guys go ahead and kick it off with an overview, and then I think we want to dive into the individual plans. It's up to you guys.
Sure. What you guys,
Kind of explain the process.
Yeah.
So what we have,
Can I
last...
just back up for
Please.
half a second, just to
Yes.
remind folks that the community compact that the town of Littleton signed with the Baker Polito administration in September of 2015 included 3 best practices. And this is one of them. Another one was economic development, that we did the economic development self-assessment tool, Crosstown Connect, transportation improvements was the second, and then the third is this public safety strategic plans. And this had been selected because in the board's goals last year, you had public safety strategic plans. So we looked no further than your goals to see what our best practice should be with the community compact. The state funded some dollars towards the study with which we could hire consultants, and so here we are, and the plan is also on this year's list of goals. So we're happy to have the presentation of the draft reports tonight.
And as a result of going through this process, the state will also help us with the execution from the plan, correct? In theory?
I'd be happy to have that discussion with the state, so.
Pressure's on.
If you don't, you can't, if you don't ask, you don't get.
You and Lieutenant Governor are pretty tight, so my money's on you.
oh, boy.
I'm sorry.
Hello, is that microphone?
Okay, that's good context, so excellent. Thank you. All right, with that being said.
Sure, so just a little, no, that's all right. So just a little backdrop, was reached or contacted by Chief King over there last spring, thereabouts, and we kind of had these initial discussions about some of the goals and objectives for the strategic plan and concept. And that rolled into an alignment meeting where we ended up meeting with both chiefs, and they had an opportunity to review some of our previous strategic plans. And we went through the process that we use to put our plan from idea into paper, into action. And, you know, that rolled into the RFP and what have you. But, so what we ended up doing is it was a multifaceted process in which we included, and I'm talking on both ends of the fire and police right now because the process was basically the same. What we did was we had our initial alignment meeting, concept of operations, and then we rolled that into internal and external surveys, stakeholder surveys, to glean information from key stakeholders with each one of those agencies, both internal of the respective agencies as well as external.
And as an example, an external stakeholder might be.
Well, I would defer to the chiefs over there. We probably, all different type of community contacts.
We have council line, the COA, various members of the community,
Yeah, I
different,
think I
on
listed.
different committees.
I know all of you responded
Yeah.
also.
Okay.
It was
great.
well, we reached out to different, again, not just to the town committees, but also like to Mill Pond Apartments, a lot, a lot of the, 147 King Street, some of these, the different demographics in the community, the business community, so we got some, some information from all the different facets of the community.
Great.
So that information was going to serve to inform what would become the strategic planning committee, to kind of give them some initial information as we move forward to what was to be an off-site, a full-day workshop on with the strategic planning committee from each one of the agencies. And so after we did that internal and external stakeholder surveys, we provided that information and the results, the information that we got back. And then that was farmed out then to the chiefs, who then in turn brought it down to the strategic planning committee, which then prepped us for the strategic planning offsite, which took place here in town back in July and August, thereabouts, for each one of them. And that culminated into a full day, stuff on the board and good discussions, and really trying to hone what the priorities, the realistic priorities for each agency would be for the next 3 to 5 years as they saw it. And all that information was then compiled into, themes were identified, which was eventually drafted into this draft report that we then provided to the chiefs for final review and approval. So that's kind of an overview, fast snap of what the process looked like.
Okay, that's great, and that brings me to one other thought, and that is tonight's purpose is to review, get feedback, but it's not to kind of sign off on the final draft. This is a draft, they're looking for the input, so that's the intentions tonight. Okay, great, any questions on the process? Makes sense. Okay. All right, excellent. All right, so shall we head into police?
Sure. Well, if I can open up real quick too, one of the great things about this, when you looked at it, there are a couple sections that obviously, when we're talking about, the hiring, there's some, some money associated with that, obviously. But a lot of this plan, as you look at, really isn't, it's not necessarily money, or it's not dollar oriented. It may be changing the way we do something internally, figure out a better way to communicate with our employees to make sure that they're on the same page. Finding out ways to better communicate with our community. As we saw, not to get into it, we'll get into it later, but as we saw the other day from that, huge meeting we had from the breaking and enterings, how to get better, how to get better and move forward, as the community moves forward. So that's, a real huge part of, I think, of any strategic plan, is how to move forward as a better organization. And, obviously, we run as a paramilitary organization, and sometimes you try to, I think in this day and age, we're trying to break down more of those walls within our organization to make it easier for the employee to understand what's going on and why we're doing things. New employees coming on today are very different than, the employees of my time, when it was much more structured military and you just did what you were told because you were told to do it that way, and that's what you did. It's not that necessarily that way anymore. you know, with that being said, I'll just run through it real quick. Obviously, the strategic plan talks a little bit about, you know, a quick overview, talks a little bit of a peek into our history of how and when and where we came from when we started, you know, relatively speaking, as you look at it, you know, 1930 really isn't that long ago that there was no, you know, organized policing per se in Littleton. So, you know, when you look at that,
My dad remembers Johnny Sargent operating the police station out of his house on Mill Road. What, didn't even have an office, it was just his living room.
so, you know,
We just tore down the living room last week, right?
you know, when I first started, it didn't work anymore, but there was still the blue light in the common that the person at dispatch would flip the switch, and the blue light would go on, and when the cruiser drove by, they knew to contact dispatch somehow by phone. They went to a payphone to call in to find out what the call was. You know, but if you think back, even in the days in the city, it was all done by, you know, they had a key on their belt, they walked in every 10 minutes or 15 minutes, they had to open up the call box to figure out what was going on. Similar thing, Paul probably remembers the blue light even.
No, I'm happy to say I'm not that old.
That wasn't very nice.
It's a common theme.
the bulb.
And
There was candles back then.
the front section of both the Chief Wazinski's plan and the police department's plan, or the fire and police plan, obviously they kind of run. They kind of run the same way. Well, they had the horns.
Right.
They kind of run the same way. You know, gives a basic overview of the strategic planning process itself, which Eric and Charlie just talked about. So then we go to over to the mission statement. That was quickly looked at, and or I shouldn't say it wasn't quickly looked at, it was discussed. The other one was kind of long and kind of drawn out, and once we went over it a few times to make it a little clearer and just clear and concise, shorten it up, go into the police department will partner with the community to enhance the lives of all Littleton citizens. We strive to create a community free from unlawful encroachment upon individual rights while safeguarding the lives and property of our citizens. And when we say citizens, we just don't mean Littleton, obviously. It's anybody who passes through our community, anybody who's in our community is, you know, is considered, you know, someone that we want to, you know, feel good. As you know, my you know, one of my mottos has always, you know, been to make Littleton a great place to live, work, and visit, and that's what I truly believe. You know, that's, you know, kind of my own little saying, but it's what I believe that we should be there for, to help and to assist do that. So,
And who's considering that modification? The committee itself will kind of,
well, you know, it's there for you to look at, and
Feedback
it's
from
you know, it's the original mission statement is up above.
I mean, from my
and,
perspective, you know, what you said in the rationale makes sense, something simple that people can repeat and, you know, they can stand behind it and quickly rattle off what is your mission. The elevator statement of what your team is meant to do, that makes sense to me. I don't know if anyone disagrees, but I think it's short.
We took off, you know, some of the bottom, like, we will accomplish this through mutual trust, honesty, impartiality, and professionalism. I hope that's what the police department embodies to begin
Right,
with, and it's
exactly.
implied, and that's, you know, does it really need to be there, you know, it's like, you know, it's like the old protect and serve on the side of a car. I hope that's implied, that that's what we're there to, you know, that's one of
Right.
the facets we're there to do.
I think so.
Organizational values. Now, Chairman Hebert and I had a quick discussion. Any of these, if you will, synonyms or breakdowns that are in here, like care, are strictly, they're not canned, they're not one that you find in every one of their, by any means, and every, you know, like Reading doesn't have care, Bedford doesn't have care. Some may have something similar, but, you know, they're really, you know, they're honed to our department. You know, it's just not a canned thing
They're
out of.
customized based
Right.
on what they
Based on what
learned
we-
from you guys. Because I
correct.
thought, what are the odds it came out care? Everyone must get care then. This isn't customized to ours, but it truly is. So we just lucked out with a cool acronym. Okay.
So that's why, you know, obviously the collaboration talks about, you know, the community itself, accountability. We work to be accountable, you know, not, you know, to our elected officials, to our community, you know, and I look at it as, you know, when accountability obviously starts, I think, you know, with the department itself, through the board, because you're elected by the 10,000 citizens of this community to, and that's who, you know, we go up that hill that way. Respect, obviously, this is what we expect out of our officers, to respect our citizens, to promote the dignity in the community. Excellence, again, we want to put out the best product that we possibly can. The people in our community in any way, shape, or form are our customers, for lack of a better term, and that's how they should be treated. And, this will sound funny, well, I don't want some of our customers to come back. I certainly want, as many customers as possible to at least, have had a good interaction with our department. Strategic, they do an analysis, again, which, brings together, everything, and we talk about future opportunities, threats, political, socioeconomic, sociocultural, technological factors, different things from the outside that may affect how and what LPD does, the growth of the point, how's that gonna affect us? Are there gonna be any more, 40Bs or large housing developments brought on? Are there any large, companies moving into town that's, that has, 1,000 employees or works 3 shifts, things of that nature. And that came up with the key strategic themes, which is GRIT in this case, which stands for growth, resources, improvements, and transformations. And I think, to me, the whole plan is important, but this to me is kind of where the meat and the rubber meets the road, if you will. Under growth, we exist within a broader envelope of partners and stakeholder organizations. Obviously, when I come before the board and when I become before FinCom and anybody else, it's all well and good. My job is to obviously advocate for my department, but to that degree, to also realize what the bigger picture is within the community. And realize that, okay, I can't go in there and just say, okay, I need, 12 new patrolmen and 5 new dispatchers and think that, that the town can afford it, and so whenever I think when we work moving forward, it's always taking the whole picture into mind as you're moving in there. We look at our, and stakeholders within the community also, could be, whether it be, obviously, we do a lot with the schools, we do a lot with the Council on Aging and the seniors. We do a lot, I think, with the different, the preschools in the community and things like that, to get ourselves out there, break down those barriers, get everybody, I think the more that people can meet officers under non-call conditions, if you will, is a good thing, because as I would say to you, knowing that face that you met just by shaking hands and saying, hey, how you doing, maybe having a cup of coffee, makes it easier when you make that face and, God forbid, somebody broke into your car, broke into your house, or you got in a car accident, or some stressful thing is there. It's nice to see that familiar face. And I get those letters all the time from people complimenting officers, saying, hey, I've known you for years and I never had to see you in this situation, and it just was so comforting seeing you. Resources, the great thing about this community is always been great about providing us, I believe, both public safety agencies with the resources that we need to work. Equipment, the beautiful buildings we're in, things of that nature, that all does make a huge difference. While I did the same job I did when we were over at 20 Foster Street, I believe to you, and I can tell you now for a fact, that the department does a better job because of the facility we're in today, and because of the way we were able to interact differently with people and make the people feel better and safer, and when they're in there. So our job is to also continue to make sure that resources moving forward are good. Improvements, always room for improvement. I don't care what kind of an agency you are, and that to me is one of the most important parts of this whole thing. Continued organizational improvement initiatives and financial resources should be explored. Staffing levels to be reviewed. Maintain operational efficiency, providing continued quality of services to the town while considering officer safety implications. Obviously, officer safety, public safety, number one consideration I look at when it comes to everything. We know we have a job that inherently has dangers that come with it. It's what we signed on for, but to keep officers in the town and the community as safe as possible. The transformation, this is moving forward into the future. Resources, organizational changes, things of that nature. You see my little statement made in there, Littleton, a safe and friendly place to work and live. This is where, we continue to move that forward. Obviously, on the 3 to 5 year goals and objectives, growth, is in there. Obviously, increased staffing levels for patrol and dispatch, something that I have already, you know, I'm moving forward again in this budget cycle that we're already heading into. Reallocating patrol resources, in improving human resource management, taking a look at, you know, patrol schedule and try and make it more efficient. Assign the dispatch floater, which is to manage call volume. The resources, potential goals in there, research funding you know, anything that's available through grants, things like that, not just trying to rely on necessarily tax dollars that are in the community here. Improving officer safety and optimize equipment resources. And internal stability, potential goals there, form a leadership steering committee. And that doesn't mean that all of a sudden there's a committee that takes over as the chief of police. What it does is make sure that we're hearing from all facets of of the internal part of the department at first, to make sure we're hearing what the most junior patrolman has to say, and making sure that information gets up and lets us make a clear pathway to go forward.
Helps better inform
You know.
your decision-making.
You're correct, you know, and more buy-in, if you will, to the overall product.
Great point.
Staff meeting advisory process, the same thing basically. Promote unified command, make sure that everybody's on the same page, we're all moving in the same direction. And that's not only the department, but that's, you know, from, you know, taking information from the Board of Selectmen and other boards, and making sure that we're, you know, if there's something that, you know, recently some members of the board have talked to me like, okay, you know, it's simplified, but like the train station was getting out of control as far as parking and everything else. They asked us, hey, can you put a little extra up there? Leadership development training, we've already this year, as soon as the deputy got back, we've already increased our leadership training, and our training, we're really trying to make sure that people from the, you know, from the newest patrol officer, you know, up to people that are ready for the next step in their career. Try to make sure we do a better job at you know, recognizing when somebody does a great thing and things like that, making sure that's there. Improving the agency pride, implement formal roll call training. We've always done roll call, but now it's even if we now are reviewing policies at roll call, especially the ones that are the hot button ones, pursuits, use of force, you know, whatever, you know, needs to be done. Some new ones coming out, like, you know, dementia, you know, things of those nature. Go over them, just to remind them, hey, here's where you have to stay to make sure you're where you should be. Transformation, develop a consistent and transparent promotional process, which I think we've done through accreditation. We're moving forward in that. There's a lot of planning went into that. Implement a career leadership development plan, which we're starting to do, and that's more by I would say by training and also responsibility, but it's making sure that people, okay, if you're a patrol officer, you know, your path is someday you want to be a detective, then you can kind of go on that training. Well, I want to go sergeant, someday I want to be chief. Okay, there's classes out there we can send you, which still assist you even as a patrol officer, but, you know, bring the agency forward. Improve employee morale through best hiring and retention practices. You know, we do a lot of that, and we're moving forward. We're asking them to, you know, give us some ideas on, you know, some things are inevitable, unfortunately. You know, there's always someone that pays more money or the job looks better, and that's gonna happen sometimes, but, to try and keep our people, because we put a big investment, you know, as a department and a community into training, and, you know, consistency is nice. Improve agency marketing initiatives, make sure we get out there better, you know, we have a pretty good online presence now, but increase that. The deputy tweets on a regular basis now, and I have to get a little bit better at that myself at some of these things. I still write notes like Paul does.
Single me out.
Sorry, I had that. Action plans you saw, they're the different, you know, everything that I kind of went over in the plan is just, you know, the plan when it's even in final stage may not have people laid out in everything of who the champion is. That is as a process. What'll happen is some of the low-hanging fruit, if you will, we'll pick off first because it's the easy things to get done and get moving. Some of the things will never end. It's through the whole plan. And it might be it might be me now, and in 10 years from now, there's gonna be a new chief, and it may be, you know, someone else who's, you know, now taking over again, so, basically, the action plan gets us to the different things I just went through in the plan, so. Just wanted to give a brief, long-winded overview.
Jumbo shrimp.
All right. Thank you, Chief. One of the comments and like she said, we had a chance to briefly talk about this. One of the questions I asked was, you know, great work, thank you all very much, first of all. But one of the questions I had was, the very first goal I see is increased staffing levels. And, you know, I kind of said to myself, if I was reading this, I might think, well, why? How can that be a goal? What are the things occurring that shouldn't be a goal? And what are you trying to achieve that is a goal? And so, Chief, want to just give your perspective on the data gathering exercise that's behind this document?
Obviously, when, you know, the process of building a strategic plan is all, you know, it's multifaceted, what goes into it. It's, I think, you know, it's management's vision, it's, you know, some of the town's vision, it's some of the patrol, you know, vision, and it's, you know, things that were gleaned from that, like, you know, why do I want the 19th officer? Doesn't really necessarily belong in the strategic plan, it's how we got there. And, I thought about it, and I talked to the chair about it earlier tonight. I will actually, before the next meeting, send you out a lot of the information that was gleaned, so you get a look at that. I apologize, I didn't think about it until tonight. I'll you know, send you some of the, I'll send you the analysis and things like that on the different stakeholder, you know, reviews and things like that. Shows you, at least it gives you some information basis on how we got to where we are. And I apologize that I didn't get that to you sooner.
Very good. I'll open it up to the board for any questions. Any questions, team, comments?
I think I'm probably gonna have the same question of both departments, but the question is really to the consultants, amongst the many acronyms in there, the one that caught my eye is SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, which is a, you know, common, review, performance review, or status review formula. I wonder if, to your eyes, anything surprising jumped up there, or whether they were, you know, some of these things are endemic to departments, especially in towns our size demographic. But is there anything that stands out as especially on the opportunity threat end, that's unusual?
So, nothing unusual, except for that you are expanding quickly in this town, it seems like. And if you're in this mindset of being proactive, you know, there's reactive policing, then there's proactive policing. And we typically are in a react mode when we're thinking about what the future looks like. When there's a crisis, then we'll respond to it. What I really liked about the forward thinking that the folks at the offsite have is they have this vision of what this place is going to look like in 3 to 5 years, and rather than having to be a management by crisis, and having that, you know, they're having this forward vision of that staffing levels and things of that nature. You know, you want to be a community-oriented policing agency. Well, that means you need to have resources available to go out and be proactive in those areas. You know, you take a look at your heroin epidemic around here and how you're managing those types of things. That all takes resources, and it takes education. And you know, what I was impressed with the officers is that you know, they were engaged in that stuff. They weren't heads in the sand. They're thinking of this stuff, you know, and right down to, you know, some of the junior officers, as I recall from the offsite. So that was a plus. That was something that I noticed, is that everybody took an interest. And you know, the strengths was the level of morale and interest that your officers took in the process. This thing could sit on a shelf and go nowhere, like most strategic plans do. And that's just the fact of it. But you have a group of officers and you know, folks on both the fire and the police that are eager to deploy some of this stuff, and some of it might even be to their own time. And you know, and I've seen a lot of cynicism out there in the different agencies that I've worked with. You've got some good strengths going on in this agency. And that's, candid. If you didn't, I would tell you that. I'm very straightforward with my analysis.
Just to follow up with yours, Paul, so I focus more on just the threats. I mean, the opportunities, I think we identified a lot of the opportunities, but do you see any threats that?
The threats is not being able to keep up with the growth of the town. I think not having resources, available, and, not being prepared, not being adequately trained. You invest a lot, some of those threats are, you invest a lot of money in training an officer. Well, what are you doing to keep them here? Because those threats are other towns coming in, and one of those threats out there right now is the fact that recruiting and policing is down, because it's not a great profession nationally that people are just jumping into because of all the threats in that arena. And so one of the threats are being able to maintain your officers that you do have and reinvesting in them so that they want to stay here. So those are some of the threats that you have. And Charlie, please.
Yeah, I was just going to add one thing that stands out, and we've done a lot of these since we worked with these folks. So, but one thing that stood out in my mind is and I forget the name of it, the mental health resource place you have in the town, and how that seemed to be, that generates a lot of attention, and they get a lot of calls, and for both fire and police. And so as far as threats go, and already some proactive things are being done with the partnerships. And I remember I met a woman that worked in that facility when we first did our initial stakeholder meeting. So there's already these partnerships, but it seems like that could overtake some things if, not only do you have major growth going on, but then there's this facility in, what's the name of it?
Pub Bridge.
The bridge.
Yeah, that's it. So that seems to be, and I think that's all communities, but your community seems to be a little more proactive in terms of bringing the partnerships together and thinking forward. But I think as far as threats go, if it gets ignored, or if state doesn't provide additional resources, or wherever the resources can be drawn, it seems like that's an additional challenge you have on top of the growth that's happening here.
The only other thing I'd like to add is that it's like your own physical health. Organizations have the body of the organization, you have the spirit of the organization. Oftentimes, the spirit of the organization is neglected, and it's probably the spirit of the organization lays more value in the success of the organization than the equipment that you have. It's really that the spirit of the organization. And I would suggest that you stay on top of that. And that is going to be through some of these training programs or what have you. And one of the things that you can do is you go to the doctor every couple of years. Well, sometimes you need to get the organizational doctor in there to kind of take a look at what is the command climate of the organization. And so those are some of the threats that, just from a more broader perspective of some of the agencies that are troubled. Oftentimes we come in after an agency's in a quandary, and we'd like to see you're in a good place.
I'll just follow up with that. I had something, quandary through something in my head. It'll come back to me. Oh, so, this isn't it, but tangential. Introduce tools like the SWOT analysis. I mean, a lot of us have done that in our own professional careers. Is that a strategy that you guys have implemented beyond this process and have used within the departments a perfect example is with, you guys moved down the road, and there's certainly some threats, some weaknesses in the location and in and out of there, and so.
Challenges and
Yeah.
projects, and you learn to overcome with your strengths,
So,
figure it out.
I would hope that if nothing else, if this did sit on the shelf, some of the tools and just going through this process, there was something garnered out of this where you guys have learned some different tools and some skills to be able to make keep the spirit going.
Yeah,
and-
do that
and
pulse
kinda-
check.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you, and I'm waiting, and it's gonna get even better, I believe, at least, when, I think when we get this command steering committee and other things up and running also, that also assists with that greatly, because there are some things I don't necessarily know because I'm not on the street per se every day. And I've got to make sure that the information is flowing so that we can help as a total organization. We can look at what threats are out there, and a threat always, a threat's kind of a bad word sometimes, because a threat could be just okay, we're building another point, and that's a threat to the fact that, okay, we're gonna generate another 700 calls a year, and who's gonna answer those calls? That's a threat to us. And there's also whether it be physical threats or things like that, so absolutely. And I've learned a lot through this process also, again, I came in, in the early 80s and was kind of an old school guy, and I kind of, had to try and, and it's a slow process to change, kind of the things you're used to. And, I certainly have, this process opened my eyes to a lot of things also.
My questions will probably go, I'd like to hear what the fire chief has to say first, but just one statement that you made, not necessarily with a strategic thing, but you made a statement that a long time ago it was different than it is now, where a long time ago you were just told what to do. With a chain of command, isn't it the same? Don't you junior officers still have to look to you and the deputy and?
I guess I would say to you this, I'll, as democratic or as I can be, the buck still stops with me. And, there are certain times, obviously, that strict chain of command, kicks in. If we're if Scott's at a fire scene or I'm at a super scene, what the chief says goes, and you do this, you do this, you do this, and you do this, and there's no time for debate. So there still is the chain of command. And, I guess I maybe oversimplified it. The chain of command isn't breaking down, and you're absolutely right. There still is that hierarchy, but giving at least more input when input, can be taken. Just because I'm the chief doesn't mean I have the biggest brain on everything when it comes to law enforcement. So listen, I guess listening more. When I first started, if you think I was gonna go into Tom O'Day's office and sit down and have a discussion with him about, how we were gonna do something, people that know Tom are now laughing because you were sorely mistaken. That wasn't happening.
What you find now with the younger generation, the millennials and stuff like that, is they tend to ask why, and want to know why, and want to go through all that. And that's okay, and like the chief said, when it's on an incident, they do what they're told and stuff like that, but then they come back to you, and it's like, why, and why? And before, it was, okay, you did what you told, like the Army, you did what you told, and you do it. My son's in the Army, and he's a sergeant now, and he has his guys coming up to him and saying, why? And he's like, you're kidding me.
I guess as long as you're creating a culture where they're empowered to make the decision and do it without knowing the why, but they're empowered and they know that this is the way it has to be done, and then coming back, it's a learning opportunity for them and having the resources to educate them through.
Totally agree with you. And I believe that's also.
The empowerment's huge.
That also comes from, I believe, the accreditation process and having those policies that they know, that the guidelines are there for them and they know them and empower them to help, and also they've been very much involved in, how we do things. So I 100% agree with you.
Very good. All right, thank you.
No time
Chief.
left for the fun.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Imagine that.
I know, no pressure, but we are over. So if you give us highlights, that would be.
I will, I'll keep this brief. I'm gonna skip over the beginning because most of it, the overview is very similar. Granted, we didn't have to look for a blue light. Every firefighter used to have a bell in their house, so when the horns would ring, the bell would ring in their house.
That's when an angel gets his wing.
Oh, there you go. Much like the PD, we didn't evaluate our mission statement, and it's still, I would say, in process. There are some things that we want to change, and we actually broke it out and kind of identified some of our values as well. But it comes down to that we will provide the highest quality of professional fire and EMS service in order to protect the life and property in our community. It's simple, that's all it needs to be, and our acronym is CLEAR. The commitment, dedicated service to our citizens, the leadership, we're the role models to the community, and examples to our new personnel coming in. The excellence, we always strive for our excellence. We want to be the best that we can be and deliver the best service we can for our community. Action-oriented, well, we won't rest until everything is complete, and there's always room for improvement.
And we're always ready for any challenge that comes down the road. We also did our SWOT analysis. We went through many things. We had, our strengths, weaknesses, the opportunities, all of the threats, the things that were addressed were staff development. That was a huge one. Communication. Make sure that there's clear communication throughout the ranks, through all the members. This is a team effort. Everything that we do within our department is it's goal-oriented to achieve, improve, enhance. And I can't do it by myself, and I can't do it just with the officers. The whole department is a team. One of the biggest things that, in the discussion in the last few minutes, the people that come in and ask why, a change nowadays is these younger kids are coming in with a more significant education. So they have a much better background. Back 30, 40 years ago, here's your rubber coat, here's your rubber boots, get on the back of the truck and just follow the guys. Now, they go to the fire academy. They're in the fire academy for 5 months before they can even touch a truck. And when they come to us, they have the same or better education than somebody that's been there for 15 years. So when they come in and they witness these, procedures or incidents, and they question because they may be educated more so than them. And one of the biggest resources is the younger generation. They can bring some new information, new outlooks, better ideas, and you take that as a team and you analyze it and listen. You have to listen to them, and you put that all together, and that's what makes your core. And you can really work, pull your team together and have a very successful group. But it's a challenge. It does take time. Some of the things that were addressed for us were staffing. We do struggle on the staffing side, especially on the call department, and trying to improve that. Things that we need to improve on that is how we get it out there. How can we entice more people to participate? I think with the town changing to a white-collar community, it's definitely a challenge. People don't want to get dirty or wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the winter when it's 5 degrees outside and roll out of a warm bed. But there are people that do. And if we can reach out and tap into that resource, then that's our job to try. Additionally, some of the other things that were addressed were on the career staffing and the services that we provide for our community. We are currently looking to improve that service by enhancing our EMS service. One of the most significant is the professional development, not only for the officers, but also for the members. And one of the largest areas that we're focusing on right now is our career department. And they're constantly being educated, taking additional classes from the fire academy to build up their level of education to have the ability to become an officer, a line officer, and lead the new members in the department. So again, on some of that stuff, marketing techniques and social media, things like that all kind of plays a role in everything that we do with all of that. But organizational development, things like forming the steering committee, conducting internal classes. One of the things that team training has available to us is to basically have all of our whole officer corps run through some of these training programs with us, and so that we do it as a group and not sending the team out to the academy doing it solo, one here, one there, but to have some of these programs internally that can be very beneficial. Some of the additional things that we ran through was creating recognition. We definitely slack on recognizing our members. They're a vital member to our department, and if we don't have the proper recognition, we can't achieve the maximum out of them.
So important.
and
You
it's-
both mentioned something about recognition, and I couldn't agree more. It drives behavior, right? And I mean, people intrinsically want to do a good job, but when they feel that you've done a good thing, they're inspired to continue to do that.
Yep,
So I
absolutely.
appreciate it.
And when they don't hear that, then it
Yeah.
fades.
Oh, no one even noticed, why should
Right.
I bother? Except
Very
I'm a good
difficult.
person and I should always do it no matter what.
And that's part of the retention part that Charlie was talking about too.
Absolutely, that's huge. So, one of the other, a couple of the other things is to, figure out within the community how to really be recognized and how can we enhance our community involvement with the different committees, with the seniors. It's huge for us to be out there and have that one-on-one in the community. I mean, we already are, we're very active, but it needs to get better. It constantly needs to get better. The town is growing and enhancing in size, and with the business, with everything, we really look at our seniors because now, most of them, they want to age in place. So for us to have that relationship with the seniors in town, it improves and it builds, and we can supply them with a better service if we know what they need. And we learn that by actually being involved with them. It's kind of a quick overview, and, I really skimmed through it.
Yeah,
but,
there's
to
a
try
lot
to-
of material there, appreciate that.
But there's a lot. There are a lot of things that we are looking to, or things that are already in process. Our new facility, and that is really, a lot of people are excited about a new facility that's in process, especially myself. But looking at the staffing, looking at the services that we provide, the equipment that we have, and that really keeps our membership going, and especially the involvement, and with the community. But we're focusing right now on splitting that up into different groups that will actually take these things in this strategic plan, and they will, per se, champion them and make it happen. It can't rely on myself, I can't rely on just the officers saying, here, this is your job, you need to do that. They all need to have the buy-in, and by having that buy-in and the participation, it really creates a whole team effort, and that's what's going to drive this plan forward in the next 3 to 5 years.
Make sure it doesn't sit on the shelf, right?
Absolutely.
Just jump in real quick, you just nailed something, I just made a note to myself to bring it up, is I think part of this process, both of you kind of had the same format, where there was a champion assigned, and we kind of did the same thing in our goals process, where we assigned a champion, because if somebody's accountable for it, we don't want to show up here and be deer in the headlights and then say, we didn't do anything on that goal, we didn't make any progress. And so if someone's assigned and accountable for that particular goal, the likelihood of it getting done and succeeding is much higher. So I assume that was part of this process through team training. And I love that you guys have embraced it, and Scott, you just nailed it right at the end there in the closing, so thanks for the layup.
Thanks.
Just another thing that I loved as part of your presentation was the listen part. It's just, it's as leaders in your departments, it's critical to communicating with the department as well as with the community, to be good listeners, because you can pick up a lot. Some ideas relative to, you have marketing down here, and we said a couple of things at the meeting on Saturday about recruiting, and with new people moving to town. We don't have a welcome wagon in town, but there's got to be some way to communicate with new people that come to town. Maybe we can meet with some realtors and figure out a way to communicate with new residents. Right over his head. No, get it? The only other thing I wanted to bring up specific to you, Scott, was, actually to both of you, is collaboration with other departments. When I was on the school committee, that's something I demanded out of the principals, was that they collaborate with other communities. And when we get these reports from, at least with like MCAS and things like that, why is Shrewsbury doing so well at the 3rd to 6th grade level? And Principal Harrington lives in Shrewsbury. Your kids go to these schools, talk to those principals, what are they doing that's helping them with math in the 4th grade, whatever it is. Whether it's training, when I was in college, I was in the volunteer fire department at Nichols College, and we collaborated with Webster and Dudley because we didn't have the critical mass to do the training on campus, so we'd go and collaborate with those communities and jump in with their training. So I don't know if there's any opportunity locally to do that, because there are other call departments around.
Absolutely.
So maybe you host one month, and then another community hosts one another month. Sorry, I'm not trying to solve all your problems here, I know we're working on it.
My fellow bison.
Nichols?
Yeah.
Nice.
I want to, just two quick things. You had mentioned with these plans sometimes sitting on a shelf, and I think that as board members, the last thing we want to see is that happen, because we've seen, not just on this, but other reports come in and have been shelved, and I'd hate to see that happen after all this work and the future work you're going through. The question I have for the two chiefs is, how do you feel that your officers felt about going into this? Were they excited? Did they volunteer? Were they reluctant and say, oh, this is part of the job?
I would, let me put it this way, Mr. Knox. I honestly feel that if I make a cognizant effort to let that sit on the shelf, that I'll face a mutiny
From the department.
from the department. Because the buy-in, as
Let me
Team
tell you
Training said,
something.
was
They
so
were
high
excited.
that if this does not come out forward and we start moving forward on these plans, you know, and I'm being overly dramatic, but if I want to ruin the department, the perfect way for me to do it is just to take this, say, we did it, there it is, too bad.
I'm gonna plug us here. We have a magic secret formula that gets people fired up. And that's exactly what happened in both of those agencies. And, you know, you're right. You'd be in a worse place, you know, if you don't act on it. And they know that. We were very transparent in our conversations on the off-site. We had very good, intimate conversations, sidebar conversations, and we gave a lot of people a lot of hope about moving the agency forward and improving them. So, you know, again, before I close here, I appreciate the patronage the town of Littleton has shown us. And it's not done, we're not leaving you, we're a phone call away, we'll help you through the process, and we'll provide that coaching and mentoring that needs to take place, so.
One thing they made sure they passed on to us is, you know, even once the plan is finalized, our champions and stuff, they're only a phone call away from them to say, hey, can you help us through this?
Accountability.
You know, we're the
Across the
champion, but, you know, I'm having trouble trying to figure out how to do this. They're reaching out to that outsider, sometimes they can help them, you know, move that thing forward, so.
I would have to say, the one thing with our offsite, not only was it the officers, but it was the core members of the department that were involved. And with the hundreds and hundreds of sticky notes that we had in the process that we went through the whole day, it pulled the involvement out of everybody. Everybody had input and ideas, and I mean, they dug deep, and it was a very progressive day. You know, and I think that having that whole team effort with this whole thing, that's what's going to make it keep. The one thing I will add is, when I started as chief in this department, we had just finished our strategic plan, and I'm pretty confident that we have achieved all of our goals that were in that strategic plan over my last 4+ years here now as chief, and that will be our goal, to achieve this as a whole team.
Certainly the involvement of the rank and file helps.
Absolutely.
Not gonna happen otherwise.
Did you have any?
No additional questions. I just say, prior to this presentation and reading the report, we had I had a general sense, I'm sure we share it, that there were good things going on here. This is very affirming that the structured process was very open, transparent, and that there's such a commitment to going forward with it. It's all positive.
Very good. All right, guys, we are way over, so let's wrap it there. Thank you so much.
Tell your friends.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Go Bison.
Take care. Go Bison.
Watch out for the cord.
I got
Thank
you.
you.
Sure.
Good, hold the cord. Nice meeting you, thank you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, very good. So last item under 2, Bobcat skid steer loader, Highway Department. Talk to us about this cool sounding piece of equipment.
It was in the capital plan, we did a bunch of research. Bobcat was the best value as they were in the last one 15 years ago. Just want to plug that we're the team player and transferred our other one to another department, so I'm kind of getting a little stiff, but we'll get through that. So we're a little over our appropriation from town meeting, but we're just gonna take it out of our budget to get the things that we need currently. And as soon as you approve this, we'll get it ordered tomorrow, and
I just ran it by just a layman and they were like, oh, those things can cost $100,000. So, I mean, I don't know the accuracy of that, but I thought this was a reasonable price for that piece of equipment.
well, it's basically we're getting the machine, a trailer, and two accessories for it.
Board, any questions?
This will answer your forklift.
No.
No.
We got a deal worked out with the light department, actually is getting
Okay, perfect.
a new one. We're gonna take theirs, for a reduced price.
Wings as good as a nod.
No, we're paying, but it's gonna be a good deal for us.
It's gonna be a good. Nice being a team player.
Yes. Any other questions?
Real simple. What is a Bobcat skid steer loader?
Oh, it's basically a Bobcat. It's the one that the wheels turn. That's why I call it a skid steer.
Okay.
Like a little small one. You can put different attachments on it. We use it to sweep the sidewalks, but we're getting a cold planer to do patching and load trucks with it, plow snow. Versatile machine.
Good. Good.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Article 7 of the May 2nd, 2016 annual town meeting to approve award of a contract in the amount of $60,200 to Bobcat of Boston of North Reading, Mass. for the purchase of a new Bobcat skid steer loader with accessories for the highway department.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's keep the efficiency moving right along. First one, public input. Everyone have a chance to speak, I think, here. Members' updates. All right. I'll start with you. Max.
Yeah, I just want to start with a little story. I have this article here. The article dates back to 1905, and it has to do...
Did you write it?
No. You still... it has to do with where our office is right now. There was actually a house next to that burnt down in 1905, and it was never rebuilt. And this article was given to me by my landlord, which is Paul Tannen, who used to be on this board. But in the article, it actually mentions that a Eunice Knox had died in that fire. So we're trying to do research on that to find out whether it's a relative, because it sounds like it probably is, because we found out that she came from Nova Scotia, and it mentions in the Boston Globe article that she was survived by a nephew, Uriah, and that was my grandfather's name, but no one in the family has ever heard the story. But what I wanted to bring to the town is that some things don't change. This is from the Boston Post, September 4th, and it's at the very end of the article where it describes the fire and everything else. Headline says, "Town needs fire protection." For some time past, the townspeople have been trying to purchase fire apparatus, but the wealthy residents have bucked the project for fear of raising taxes. That's from 1905, right in the Boston Post.
Very good.
Good luck with that research. Oh, really?
Yeah, we have research.
Pretty cool, it's a pretty cool connection. Well, it's sad, but.
But do you have anything else, Jeff?
Just, thanks for everybody for coming out on Saturday for our budget summit. It's always good to get the process going and have that open process and everybody come forward and let us know what the year is gonna look like, and what the budget's gonna look like. It's a good opportunity for all of us to get together and ask questions and whatnot. So just wanted to thank everybody for coming out and doing that.
Well, I certainly can't top the tragic death of Eunice Knox, so that'll be...
Love that story about band camp.
I have one quick thing too. As a joke, I texted a fellow selectman who's down in the islands and said that, time for the meeting. He says, he makes a motion to have a cigar and a beer.
Second.
Do I hear a second?
If he were here today, he'd be in Shirley, where there were 51 inmates who were refusing to go back to their cells.
Well, I was just up there.
He'd get it done.
Okay, and I too don't have any, actually, my updates would be master plan, which is the major topic coming up, so.
Let me ask you for an update. How did the chest tournament go?
Oh, the chess tournament this Saturday was wonderfully successful. We had over, what do we have, 18 players or something like that, ranging from the real little tykes to chess geniuses that didn't lose
putting
any
a joke?
game. So, chess geniuses that didn't lose any game. No, it was wonderful. So thanks to the Park and Rec. I think it went really well. All people from all different towns came to play as well. So, yeah, congratulations to all the winners. So,
Good deal.
thank you. All right.
Madam Chair, do you want me to do that?
Oh, I'm so
After you go?
sorry, Chief. I need to recognize Chief for an update. Absolutely, please.
Just real quick, on Saturday, Chairman Hebert was able to attend. We had a meeting of, we were having a real problem with a rash of breaking and enterings in the Sunday. Saturday, we were here for the budget. Sunday, we had a meeting, about 130 residents attended. We were having a real issue in the area of Hartwell Ave, Spartan Arrow, Whitetail Way, Matthew Drive, Colburn, Lawrence,
Sheridan.
down Cricket Lane. So we had put out a reverse 911 telling everyone at the time, we were just having a summit because we, hadn't had any luck on our solve. When we put that out for the call for Sunday's meeting, we had also had the photo out there that was gleaned, which then we were able to make an arrest involved in that situation before the Sunday meeting. We still kept the Sunday meeting going because we knew a lot of people would have a lot of questions. The meeting was great. There was a lot of questions and answers. The person was charged with, the initial round of charges. Unfortunately, he was a local resident, which is kind of disheartening, I think, for the people who live in the area, but at least it's solved and it's done. Today, I had informed the chair just before the meeting that today we were actually able to recover a lot more of the stolen property that was stolen from the area. We did very well. Detective Crory and Sergeant Fernandez have done a great job tracking that down. There's been a lot of cooperation out there from residents, and the meeting was just, the room was as full as I've ever seen it. There was people having to sit on the floor and
I was
standing
three people
room.
back.
And
There were three rows of people.
there was, one resident told me she had stopped counting at 100 into the room. It was around 130 to 150. But it was really good. It was something, as Chair Hebert sent me afterwards, was a great best practice, something we'll continue on. And we did learn some things also, too, real quick out of it okay, we rely so much on social media today, but there were a handful of people there that said, please use reverse 911, please use other things, because I don't have a social media footprint. Don't want to. I'm a college professor. I don't want my students to be able to track me or do stuff. And some of the older people who said, real quickly, it was a great day, and the department, I think, has done, the members of the department did a great job, and again, we recovered right now, our evidence room and our evidence large extra storage units are full, so that's good.
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
thank you, Chief. Yeah, it was fantastic. Like you said, if you had that meeting before he was caught, it was a wonderful way to bring everyone together to educate them what was
Strategize.
going on. Exactly. And then, it was great to socialize after, people sharing stories from their perspectives and things like that. And they commented, I don't think this has ever been done like this before, and we really appreciate that. So, best practice.
Thank you.
Chief. Okay. Next up at 7:15, which really ends up being 10 to 8 at night. I thank you for your patience. Master Plan Update Steering Committee, we are joined here by the Chairman, I almost said Selectman Paul
Not
LaBelle.
anymore.
Mr. Paul
My paycheck
LaBelle.
doesn't come in anymore. Madam Selectwoman and members, always an honor and a pleasure to be able to be with you tonight. Also in the audience here with me, we have Judy Barrett from RKG, our associate. And that just demonstrates some of the commitment that I'll be speaking about, that she would come here this evening to be here with us. Everybody knows Maren Toohill and our administrative savior on this process as we move on forward. And Mike Zeldin also from the committee. And certainly Mr. Glavy and Ms. Hebert, also committee members. This evening, I'd like to just give you a bit of a quick update as to where we are with master plan and where we're going to be headed.
If you want to advance them, you can pull that over to the table. Just unplug this one.
Love this the first picture, by the way. It's that one. Pumpkins. Is there?
Okay, I'm here to give you an update, as I just said. We didn't pick a winter picture on purpose. I had a little bit of help with the autumn, as we were just starting the winter now, so it just started this past weekend. Major areas to address. This is what you saw the last time I was before you all. And what you're going to see as we go through it, we've developed some of the goals that we're going to be going forward with to actually form the basis of the plan. This is the background. These are all those areas that need to be included in the master plan. Not just need to be included, but wanted to include. Certainly, you all in the charge to the steering committee from the get-go, the steering committee itself, and definitely from the folks who have come forward throughout the entire process to help us along so that it's really Littleton's plan and not any one board, commission, or whatever, and certainly not the steering committees, but the people of Littleton. And all this, as you will see, has been incorporated some way, shape, or form. The priorities, again, these are priorities we presented to you the first time I was up here in front of you to give you an update. They've unchanged. They're enduring, and again, they help to form the basis, the foundation, if you will, as to what we're going to go through. And I'm not going to read each one of them out aloud. You've read them before, and you see them, and they certainly are present now. And they are in the packet for folks to see back home also as they go through, and they see this on demand, or even if they're seeing it live right now. But certainly, we want to capture what is Littleton? What do we think it is? Now, if you get 10 people and ask each of those 10 people, you're going to get at least 11 different answers. We understand that. But what we started to observe is that there was a congealing, there was a direction, and certainly there's going to be outliers. And it's a bell curve, but when you set it, the 10% on either side would want to see no change or extensive change. But really, when you start looking inside that, and it's from a standard deviation perspective, it's actually fairly narrow, so it's not all that far off. That was pleasant to see. Certainly, some folks have higher priorities in different areas as we go through this. But again, how do we put it all together so that it's a Littleton plan that serves those of us who live in Littleton? Just a reminder who's on the team, and as I mentioned, Judy Barrett is here this evening with us. These are the 5 primary team members who have been helping us along.
Thank you, Judy, by the way, for joining us. Appreciate it.
Happy to be here, thank you.
Now, as we've gone through the process, is where the goals were developed. And you see, we've bolded and then given the actual goal that goes along with it. So stewardship is, how do we do what we're talking about, what we're doing? Who's going to do it? How is that board, person, body, whatever, function within town government going to help us get through that? And whether it's a farm, the lakes, the natural resources, the open space, what is it that we're going to do to steward it be? So with that, we become those good stewards, if you will. Community development. Talk a lot about that. Certainly land use has been a high topic item this past year and a half or so for the selectmen and for the planning board. The master plan itself is trying to address some of that, helping establish some of those priorities as we go down. Not necessarily identifying parcel by parcel by parcel. We don't see that in this plan as being that's the way to do it, but certainly that as a board, whether it's you, the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, others, what is it we go and how do we come together and work together so that we do achieve some of those? Good services and jobs. So right now, Mike, remind me, what do we got, 5% of folks that live in Littleton work in Littleton?
Yes.
Ballpark. So most of us don't work here. In fact, I think Paul, Joe, your business here, Paul, your business is here. The rest of us, for the most part, we work someplace else on the planet. And certainly a good number of folks go towards Boston. And even as large as an employer as IBM is, we've not determined the exact number, but you can see 5% of this total town works in town, and realize some of those are homegrown businesses, small businesses at that. So most of us don't work here, is the point. But yet, we certainly want good services and good jobs here in our town. So how do we work towards that? And then where are we going to live? Is it going to be a cluster community? Are we going to continue to be spread out? And when we started looking at all this, and it was brought to our attention, certainly one of the concerns we have is like open space and a visible open space. If you think about it, an open space out in the middle of the woods someplace is not all that visible. So we talk about 2A often, Great Road, and the gateway to the town. And certainly that's very visible to us, and we're working to preserve that in many instances. But when you look at the cluster of houses in the town, it indeed is cluster. If you look at Goldsmith, for example, it's a very good example. It's an older part of the town, more established for sure. And then there's smaller communities, if you will, or smaller developments along the way. But when you look at the total amount of land available in Littleton, it's actually fairly substantial that is not built upon. Certainly some of it is conservation already. Some of it is wetland that will never be built on by definition. But still at that, for the total town, when we look at it, we're in the 70% or so that's not built upon. Now, some folks would say, stop it there. Others, well, maybe we can expand a little bit more, but then how do we go about that? Others, can we raise some of these facilities, these buildings? So, getting around town. Early this evening, we talked about transportation, Keith brought it up, Crosstown Connect, and how do we connect these various pieces, if you will, of Littleton. So these little burgs, if I may use that term, as to how do we connect them? Certainly from the center of town and being able to have easy access in and about the center of town, the common area, whether it's from about Acton Toyota towards the point. How can we easily get there as pedestrians? Not all that easy. As a pedestrian, how do you get, or bicyclists for that matter, how do you get to the train station? It becomes another issue. And again, it's not that easy right now.
And that's a shared goal. That's one of our goals as well, specifically. Yeah, absolutely. And actually, we saw on the Facebook today, we got a comment from a resident. Has it been captured how important it is to have transportation and safe ways for people to bike or walk around town? Yes, it certainly has.
And precisely. And then how do we, and this gets a little bit of stewardship too, is how do we spend our tax dollars and spending wisely? Whether it's the schools, other community facilities. We had the fire chief here talk about his new facility under construction, other recent additions. And when you really think about it, in the 300 years of Littleton, very, very recently, high school, middle school, Russell Street renovation, Shaker renovation, new police department, new fire station, the library is on tap, and all what I just mentioned since 2001 or so. So really, just in the last 15 to 16 years, our town has gone through, for our purposes, and from our perspective, a massive infrastructure build, if you think about it. So, and as we go forward, how do we maintain those, maintain them well, so that buildings such as this, built in the 30s, is still usable to us when we're around, because I certainly will be around 60, 70 years from now.
Absolutely.
Give or take a couple of decades. But then not to lose sight of what it is Littleton has been. Because certainly, we can always have all the velocity we want, but if we don't have a vector as to the direction we want to go, where you started from is very useful in knowing where you're going to go. So the historic resources that we do have here in town that remain extant, we want to be able to preserve those as we go forward. And then good government in that, how do we provide resources to those who govern us too? So it's not just necessarily, how do we look at you sitting on this board, but just as an example, and how you do good governance, but how do we as a town collectively provide the resources necessary to help you do that good governance, so to speak? That's important to us. The schedule. I'll go through this somewhat quickly, but what I do want to stop on a couple of things is starting down the fourth one, the public forum. We had roughly 230 folks show up at the middle school for that. It was wonderful. Core assessment meetings where our consultants met with various and sundry boards, committees, people about town, different commissions and the like, to try and get a feeling as to what's going on in the town. The charrettes, the planning exercises. Littleton Common is so important to us that we dedicated one entire charrette to it. And as the chairman points out, part of our working group here, these little, let's call builder blocks, Legos almost, where folks had the opportunity to somewhat design the town as to what might they like to see happen. And you can see, it's tough to see on television, I'm sure, some of the black lines that are drawn to go in between each of those structures that were put there. But some of them pre-existing, some of them moved, some of them changed about as to how might we make that. Always keeping in mind that what we have here is private property too. So it's not a case where no matter unlimited resource, we're just going to go out and restructure the entire common.
Yeah, I think I saw my dad's backyard turned into some sort of a road, if I'm not mistaken.
But how do we incrementally go about this? Because remember, this is not a single point in time that we're done with this plan. It's an enduring living plan that we're going to have to nurture going forward. And these are the sorts of things that will be nurturing and helping to endure as we go forward and change as necessary. The charrettes, they gathered roughly 50 to 60 so folks each one. Then public forum number 2, confirm the vision and set those goals, and the goals that I elucidated a little bit earlier in this conversation, is we had roughly about 100 people. Now what's coming up for us is the town-wide workshop. That's going to be the 25th of January. I've got an actual slide for that to just take a little bit more. And then, if you think about this, pick the euphemism you want, or pick the analogy, the metaphor, it doesn't matter. Whether we're rounding third base on the way home in the first inning, is about where we are now. Whether in the home stretch, and it's not the Belmont Stakes, it's the Kentucky Derby because we still got the Preakness and the Belmont Stakes to go. Pick the one. Let's use the Patriots. That's a good one. They're just entering the playoffs, and that's about where we are. So we got a long way to the Super Bowl. Yeah, I'm being somewhat comical and tongue-in-cheek on this. The important thing, though, is we are getting close, and we're starting to close the gap. Remember, we started this, if you look at 14th October, excuse me, as we issued the solicitation, but we go back to the previous May town meeting for some of the money that's appropriated for this, and we'll get to the budget here in a second also. But as we look at these next few months, we're in the middle of January almost now, and by the middle of May, actually, town meeting is when?
May 1st.
May 1st.
May Day.
So if we look at that, February, March, April, we're at 3.5 months, and we'll be presenting a town meeting as to what we've accomplished in this. The last line there, though, notice the dates on it. June of 2017 to May of 2027. At least 10 years where we're implementing, evaluating, and recalibrating. That's going to be important. Forthcoming deliverables, we'll have master plan recommendations on the 10th of February from our consultant. We'll have draft master plan a month later. We'll be going through that with a fine-tooth comb, getting it ready so that we can get it to the planning board, so that early April, give or take, the planning board will have the opportunity to pass on this and have their vote as to whether to accept it or not. And certainly it's our goal that they indeed do accept it. And then it's set the final master plan submission to the town so that folks can see what we've done and put that in the public forum, and we'll work with the town moderator as to how we implement that into the town meeting. Okay, I promised this slide here on the public forum open house. Previously, the public forum has been a bit more structured. This open house, while structured, is going to be from 4 to 8. So people will be able to come and go and make their inputs and be felt, have their concerns addressed, and then certainly the inputs that they bring to us. It's going to build on the results of what we did last month, the second public forum. We're going to be looking at those 4 to 6 action items that help us address the goals. How do we get from where we are today to actually implementing and getting that action plan moving? There'll be 9 stations. The residents can go 1 through 9, stay at 1, where their heart's consent is. And then this dot voting option, you may recall it, we've used it a couple other times in this process, where folks have gone by, what's important, maybe we give them 3 dots. So what are the 3 most important things, and they may use all 3 dots on one item, scatter them about. And that starts to give a bit of a scattered diagram of sorts as to what it is the majority of folks participating see that's important. We'll have a suggestion box for folks that can't make it, and other non-resident type items that may be important. And then finally, sandwiches, chips, fruit, beverages for all. Not Selectmen Carr's choice of beverage today, but we will have beverages nonetheless.
Food always helps. So, and one super quick side note on discussion centers. So one of the discussion centers is economic development. And actually, next on our agenda is a discussion with the Economic Development Committee, and tell me what you think, but I thought it would be good to get to EDC's input on those economic development related action items in the same way that this forum would, and even can help us call up what are those top priorities that we should bring to the forum. So,
And that goes for all of them. For all our commissions and committees and boards and whatever, whether it's conservation, agriculture, economic development, all those participatory in this entire process. None of this is to be stovepiped. Because if we stovepipe it, well, we all think we're doing genius work in our little stovepipe. What are we doing to integrate so that we get synergy in all this? And that's an absolute necessity. So your point is very well taken and right on. What I would do and emphasize, we may not have been able to touch every single resident in the town of Littleton with this process, but I feel very, very confident we've come close at the very least to being inside each and every household that's in the town of Littleton.
Yeah.
And it's been through the help of many, many people in this particular instance, as far as getting into the household, so to speak, Littleton Light and Water, using the billing process. So we've been able to put flyers in each of those bills. You know, you've been out to a football game, we're handing out flyers to people there. Social media, true, not everybody's on social media, but we have used that extensively. Others have shared it, so we have our own website, we have our own Facebook page. Our Facebook page has been shared. Residents for Better Littleton, for example, will share very frequently, and I think maybe almost all the things that we put on there, as far as when it comes to meetings and stuff like that. So certainly social media, you know, face-to-face, we've been at town meeting, outside there, as people are coming in the door again, handing out brochures and pamphlets to folks.
we even have like a marketing outreach guide, don't we, where it's like, here's all the avenues, here's who's responsible for which area, and it's like every time we need to publicize something, here's our recipe book. We can almost like, you know, leverage that for other things, actually. Sorry.
Think social media sitting in front of us.
Yes, that's my.
Commander-in-Chief. for that command relationship you were concerned about earlier. I've talked about, stewardship of the town's money. It's important to all of us on the committee, certainly me very personally, is that we spend this money as wisely as we can. Right now, we're close to about $30,000 above what has been allocated and passed at town meeting for us. As far as when we look into the future, what our future spending is, coming through about the 1st of June or so. As I say, we're about 30,000. When I last reported to you, we're a little less than 20,000, so we've been able to pinch a few more pennies as going along. We think the money we've spent has been spent wisely up to this point, and I made the commitment to you all is that we're not coming back yes for more money. It's our intent to spend what you gave us and make it work.
And being on the board with you and watching that take place, watched it like a hawk, and wasn't so restrictive, like, we can't spend that money, but made really wise decisions on how to spend the money, so thank you very much for that.
Maybe we can get the fruit on sale for the forum.
Exactly.
Marin's got some really good deals for us as we've been going along.
Everything's out of season right now.
Okay.
Yeah, all the bruised fruit.
What I'm going to offer to you right now is, just as the word says, consideration. Use it as a point of departure. I'm not asking you for a decision on this. We're going to be speaking about it much more tomorrow evening in our regularly scheduled Master Plan Update Steering Committee meeting, which will be at 7 p.m. and it'll be at the police station in the community room at 7 p.m. tomorrow night. So everybody's welcome to attend that meeting also. But implementation has been one of our biggest concerns. Earlier, somebody used the phraseology about the strategic plans for the police and fire not to sit on the shelf. Well, we being much more forward-thinking in the IT world, internet technology, information technologies, we don't want it in cyberspace and just float around.
Sit on the thumb drive.
Right.
So
Into the
that,
cloud.
the cloud, so to speak, and nobody's accessing it. So implementation from day one has been on the front plate for us. And it's not that we are in the plan, we'll have all this all planned out. Oh, by the way, let's implement it. It's implemented throughout the entire plan. So the plan is one of implementation. Accountability was mentioned. Chuck, you talked about that a little bit earlier, the champions, so to speak.
Right.
There has to be accountability. It's a mantra for me. Shared responsibility means no one's
I
responsible.
totally agree. Yep.
There has to be a belly button. I'm suggesting that to you. As I said, this is a point of departure for you all to discuss and decide on how you really want to do it. We'll have a much more formal recommendation for you all in consultation with our consultants, the entire committee, as to come forward with that formal recommendation, so to speak, as we move forward. But why aren't you thinking about it now? You're talking about the budgets. Planning board's already put 30K in, do I remember that right? So the planning board has put that into their FY18 budget to look how they're going to work to implement it. I encourage you all to think similarly, and all boards and commissions and departments here in the town to think that through.
And just to add on to that super quickly, in the beginning phases of the master plan process, one of the tasks given to the members was to reach out to other towns to learn what they had gone through. And when I talked to a couple other towns in Westford, couldn't stress it enough, this is what they brought. I said, what's your biggest lesson learned? Get me to the end of this and tell me what was your biggest lesson learned. And this was it. They said, make sure you create an implementation committee and get on top of the implementation piece of this as soon as possible. Because if you look what happened in Westford, one of the recommendations in their master plan was to update, was it the library or town hall? I can't remember, one of the two major buildings, which then the implementation committee wasn't formed, no one followed up, and it burnt down to the ground or had some unusable condition, and then they were in a panic. Now they're reactive, and they said, we wish we had kept the process going and started pushing towards implementation. So, I mean.
And structural and code issues in the town hall.
Thank you, town hall, structural and town, thank you. Yes, exactly.
And Judy, correct me if I misstate this, but like Groton took a different approach to this, where they had a plan, and then in a separate process had an implementation process, so they had their plan.
Right.
We've chosen not to go down that road. We're putting it all together, because again, our view of this was, it's not a plan, now let's figure out how to implement it. It's as we're planning,
It's integrated.
how do we go about implementing. So. And again, this is just a further elucidation as to something for you to consider as we go forward on how you may want to ensconce this so that indeed it happens. Our web pages, our Facebook pages, always got advertisement. I don't know if everybody noticed, but down at the bottom, most of these slides also, www.planlittleton.org. We certainly like you to go visit those. Okay, you saw this last time I was up here, and the challenge is, it's still a winding road. We're still not quite sure what's around the corner. But indeed, we're holding hands, and we're moving forward. If you notice the seal that we've been using, cultivating the future, and it is an adult and a child. And it's not that any one board is the adult and the child, it's that we're all adults as part of this, and we're all children as part of this also, if you think about it, as to how we're moving forward with each other as we do indeed go forward.
Now, cultivating has nothing to do with what we approved on Taylor Street.
Proposed community agreement with medical marijuana cultivation.
Sorry.
All those good jobs, Chuck.
But you helped push us in the right direction.
Is there anything you all would like to add?
I think it was great,
Half-baked.
captured the whole process quite well.
I'm open to all your questions.
Board, any questions, thoughts, comments?
I'm not sure how often we do this, so I just want to make sure we don't miss an opportunity to credit our chair, Paul Avella, for the terrific job he's done. Stewardship is a word he used earlier, and I think that's been his hallmark throughout this whole process, looking out for the town's interests, keeping us on track, and ensuring, I mean, we knew we had great consultants, but that's not the, with Judy and the other folks, but that's not the guarantee that you're gonna have a good work product at the end. And I know PJ is committed to making sure we have just that. Implementation has been an ongoing concern. The lesson of the last plan, if nothing else, was that we really didn't, you know, amongst other things, we didn't have a proper mechanism for that in place. And there's work to be done in the next couple of months, but there's a lot of good reasons to feel good about the process to date.
Couldn't agree
Really
more.
kind of you, but certainly team effort. There's 12 people on that board, and Maren, everything that she does.
Andy's mom.
Everybody's working hard at it.
Joe, were you gonna say something? No. Anything from your side?
No, he is modest, and, you know, there's, you use the term vector, and I think you've done a good job of keeping us updated and keeping the committee on that vector.
Vector who?
Not vector.
Victor?
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank everybody on the
Thank you
committee.
all.
Yes, thank you guys. Okay, fantastic, very exciting, like Paige said, in sort of the home stretch type of a deal. So get out there January 25th and get your input in again. Open house format, so don't worry about timing, come and go as you please between 4 and 8. All right, 4 and 8. Chairman Neil Cornelius from the Economic Development Committee. I
Ladies and
appreciate
gentlemen.
your patience as well.
I don't have an exquisite PowerPoint presentation like Mr. Avella, but that's down the road.
That's totally fine.
It's in development.
And this,
Development. It is.
if my memory serves me correctly, we were going through our goals, economic development, certainly one of them. And, well, we were going through all the goals and saying, what have we done? What, you know, what's on the radar? You know, what's the status? And we got to economic development and we said, you know what? We should check in with Neil.
No problem.
So, tell us a little bit about what's going on from your
So
perspective.
right now, the main project we have going on, our focus has been the update of the town website, Business in Littleton link. We put together quite a bit of content and information. We've had numerous dialogue with the consultants involved. The next steps, once they're done, are to filter and prioritize the stubs to be incorporated into the final product. I did speak with the consultants today, Marcy Salito and Mike Goody, and they informed me that they're almost ready for design and page structure to be reviewed by our board.
You know, maybe you ought to explain that we're being assisted in that with the.
Yeah, we are
consultants
being
through the
assisted
light water
with
department.
funding from Littleton Electric Light and Water Department with these consultants. We have made a deal with them to help us, or basically pay the cost of these consultants, so no cost to the town. And so once they have done their review, which should be end of the week, Thursday or Friday, we're gonna have a meeting to kind of filter down and drill down the pertinent information that we want on that particular link.
Keep it simple as much as you can.
Yes, you know, we don't want it wordy, we've looked at a
Yeah.
lot of other town websites, and it's very wordy.
Right.
In addition to that, we're also putting, just happens, I happened to mention it at the meeting, of drone footage, and Ivan kind of smiled and said, we just bought a drone. I'm like, beautiful. So we're going to use their drone to take footage of IBM, the Point, the train station,
Your backyards.
yeah, Paul's backyard.
I'm just saying, that was my idea.
I think the PD has that in the evidence room from the guy that was casing the place.
Yeah, really, maybe we can use some of that.
So once that link is all done, we hope to, we put that all together. We just hope to give people more information and help attract businesses to the town. And we want to make it very flowing and very easy, not bogged down with words, really,
Right.
Videos and images and
Videos,
less words.
images,
It's
Right.
tough for a word guy to, knowledge, but I work on a lot of websites.
To make
That's-
people,
that's-
You gotta keep it simple,
Yeah.
and you drill in, and you keep drilling until you get, if you need that detail, but visually, it's a hook
Yes,
to.
because after, 3 or 4 or 5 clicks, people lose interest and they go on to something else. So we're trying to minimize that.
Mhm, yeah.
So that's been our main project right at the moment. Any questions on that particular point?
Any questions, guys?
The other thing which is in your packet is we're very happy that at town meeting, we approved the funding for the sewage feasibility study to continue. We definitely want to, put that on the fast track, because the quicker we get that going, the quicker that we're gonna have results of businesses moving in and around the common. And that's gonna be a tough project. It's a tough endeavor. We've kicked it down the road for years and years and years. But the only, well, 2 reasons that businesses aren't in the common, one is sewage and 2 is parking, and everybody knows that. So now if we can, I don't actually know the process of using that funding to who would actually run that feasibility study. I would reach out to, of course, to Megan Ford, who was on it before, who's very well knowledged in the ins and outs of that, because she already has looked at that very intensely, a few years back. So I think her knowledge would be essential, and at least getting whoever is going to do it, the ball rolling, to start where she kind of left off, and then once we can get some answers on that, then we'll make decisions to see where we go, where we put it, how it's done, and then we move forward. But we're very happy with that recommendation, that the town did vote for that funding.
So any thoughts on that?
Well,
guys?
I think there are 2 pieces, and Keith could probably speak to one of them. One is we have to generate the RFP to hire a consultant to do the next phase of that, and there's actually some draft language left over from the prior commitment, the committee rather, that Megan had chaired, and that the Charles River Watershed Association, Bob Zimmerman, and those folks had put together before, so we got to get that on the table and sit down and hash that out, get it published. And the other part is the potential for grants to supplement, which we talked a little bit about at the fall town meeting, and I know Keith and Bob both went in for a meeting at Department of Environmental, Energy Resources, right, DOER?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Didn't get high enough, the totem pole, though, and so we've got some commissioners yet to meet with, higher up.
Ned Bartlett?
Well, the staff that we met with were low level,
Yeah.
and we're not authorized to think outside the box, so we're
Big
looking
enough
for.
pens.
Right.
So there's no funding that is readily available, but we will
Yeah.
raise it with the commissioners at a higher level.
Okay, so one's the RFP, and then your 2 thoughts.
The pursuing the grant
Grant
funding
funding.
and the RFP
Oh, and the grant
process.
funding, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think will be a series of further meetings with state officials to try to identify potential funding sources, but I think that's going to be on a separate track from just getting the RFP document out. And we've got additional staff capacity on on board now with a public works director who, can be part of our team. And so we should be able to get to that later this month, I think, and get it out the door.
And I believe, did Bob not say that there's not a high likelihood, but there is the possibility of getting some federal funds? This?
I know he's looking into it.
Yeah, just looking into it, I don't, how likely, I think the
Right.
world's gonna change and.
So it's kind of,
A week
it's
from-
all out there right now, Neil.
week from
Well, I
Friday.
mean, it's something that, and again, maybe reach out to Jim Macero or, try to get some.
Get up the totem pole a little bit.
Somebody's ear at Beacon Hill, like you said earlier, like he said, you don't get what you don't
Yeah.
ask for.
Right.
So,
Well, part of it is that, my understanding in talking to Bob Zimmerman is, because of some of the groundbreaking aspects of what we're doing, there's not a neat program for us to fit into, so we kind of have to encourage them to think broadly, and there should be some,
Creatively.
yeah, there should be some reason for that, because what we're doing should be, what we want to do is what people should be copying.
Right, we're trying to get the attention of the policy makers high enough, because our square peg doesn't fit into the round holes. And we're trying to, but it's a great idea.
and lastly, that is not in your packets, everybody has read that IBM is hiring 25,000 new people worldwide in the next 4 years, 6,000 people this year. Now, we have IBM right here that is the largest employer in town. So we have had a few meetings over the last couple of years with Bob McDonald, and I actually did a tour of IBM a couple of years ago with Jim Arcero and The Point and Red Hat. And I had a conversation with him, did they ever intend to expand this campus over there? And he told me at some point there was some talk about it on the books to put a new lab over there, which would be great, create more jobs, even though some of them may not go to the people that live in the town, but it's still better than nothing.
Sure.
The other thing that I was thinking is that if we did contact them and get the expansion, they were going to expand in town, we could direct them up to Taylor Street and Foster Street, existing buildings, maybe get some input from them, just to see what their thoughts are. And, again, this doesn't hurt to ask.
Right. So,
So, I mean, and depending on what the board suggests, I can reach out to Bob or whomever.
Well, a part of what we, I think, need to formalize is getting, kind of an inventory of available properties in town and making sure that the town regulatory boards, the business community, everybody's kind of on the same page on that. I mean, I'm not opposed, obviously, to any individual effort, but making those marriages work ought to be a formalized mission of the committee. And it's not a bad place to start, but I think we ought to make sure everybody who has a stake in it has a voice in it.
At least just to throw the idea out
Yeah.
there so that it gets noticed and something happens.
and who is it, from a liaison perspective, is it fine for the Economic Development Committee to reach out to Bob as an,
Well,
to
that's
that
my
example?
suggestion. I mean, I
Yeah.
could call him and say,
Right,
what
and
are
just
your
at least get a
thoughts?
pulse, what's going on, and
Yeah.
maybe not, talk about next steps. So,
Because we
is that
had a
us? Is
meeting,
that
we
them?
had a meeting a year and a half ago. They didn't even know we had all the empty space up on Foster and Taylor Street.
Right,
That's crazy,
right. So
Like,
how do
it's
we
the same
keep
town.
pulse on them?
and right next to the train station.
Yeah.
They're trying to do that reverse commute as well.
Well, maybe we ought to have a meeting of the Economic Development Committee with some of the town officials and kind of talk about.
Yeah, I mean, Bob participated, and PJ's here, although the consultant's not, but Bob participated in several, Bob McDonald participated in several of the master plan.
Yeah.
The core.
Core groups. In fact, I saw on the draft list
I
of
was in one of
goals.
those
I mean, I
meetings, yeah.
recognize one of them as being off of Bob's list, and that is undergrounding overhead
That's a big
wires,
concern for them.
which is a huge,
Right.
which is the number one issue of what IBM would like to get out from the host community is more reliable electrical
Yeah.
service. So, where they have power outages. I think it's fine for, if the EDC wants to contact them, I think we're all in touch at some level with Bob McDonald. If there's a meeting that gets set up where, you know, you bring them in for something that we'd love to know.
Just
So,
copies,
yeah.
yeah.
See everybody, yeah.
So that it's, if you've got him and he's
Captive audience.
captive, then
Sure.
we'll all swoop.
Ambush him.
We're all on the same page.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're hopeful that we'll have something back from the website consultants that'll,
Yes,
by the
she
end of the
said
week?
Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, that would be another great thing to swoop down and to
Yep.
get briefed
And
on.
lastly, from our board's perspective, just waiting on the next mission, our next assignment. You guys come up with what you want us to tackle.
Let me ask you this, just quickly. We had 5 bullets under, from our perspective, our goals under economic development. Let me see if any of those go, yeah, that's on our radar or not even on the radar. Develop economic development marketing plan.
Littleton Business Link.
It goes, and the next one is doing business in Littleton website. So those
Those are
two
kinda
go
combined.
together. Get the website, then market it, okay? Expedite review and permitting approvals processes. Appoint task force to review. We never did that. Is that on your radar at all?
That is part of the process as well. If we can streamline permitting, you know, depending on, get together with the Board of Health, the Planning Board, we want to kind of get that together and streamline it, similar to like we did with Sand Park and the Point. I mean, we really fast-tracked that whole project. So if we could continue that success, it would be behoove businesses to follow on that path, I believe.
I think so too. And maybe part of that's coming out in your website development. As you're seeing the clicks and processes, it's like, okay, this is an opportunity to simplify. I might plant the seed that might be a focus area. You know, just continued focus area. Okay, how about this one? Craft commercial industrial attraction policy and comprehensive cross-marketing strategy. So it's kind of like a strategy for, you know, how do we attract businesses and market them?
Yeah, well, it's all gonna come through that link with, you know, the lower cost of power in town, water in town, access to 495 and Route 2. We're basically a technology highway ourselves out here. And the workers' employment pool, there's a great pool of very smart folks out in this area that was a great attraction to, especially IT.
I think part of the critical part of this is creating a link in a website is fantastic, but if we don't get traffic to it, it's
Yeah.
like
How do you make
putting
sure?
a strategic plan on a shelf, right? And I think that old-fashioned marketing is important, and the biggest part of it is networking. So there's a lot of commercial realtors around that, you know, if we had
One of our-
somebody, seen Richard Ellis.
Caroline Armstrong was a member, I don't know if she's here tonight. but
Right.
She is going to try to come up with a list of vacant buildings and properties, how much the square footage is, what the size of the square footage is. So that is substance that
Perfect.
somebody can go and look and say, can we afford that square footage for this particular site?
Yeah.
So that is in the works as well.
Right, so if we had like a glossy or just they call it a sell sheet in my industry, but just a sell sheet that had, okay, Littleton has great water rates, great electricity rates, so these are the crossroads. You know, we've got
Flyer type of thing.
all kinds of great places for lunch.
Perks.
Dinner. Yeah, so it's the MBTA. So all those things on a 3-page foldout or something like that, where if somebody came in to apply for a permit or to get some information about doing business in Littleton,
Yeah.
we would have something, whether it's special services or like that. I think that getting all the information done digitally and electronically is fantastic, but there's still a lot of people that, you know, that we can touch with doing some
Something we can
networking.
hold.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We can share out. Yeah, that's great. Okay, and the last one was develop a strategy for reducing high retail and office rents, and something tells me that's not even on the radar. Reducing
down the
office.
road.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, so my gut tells me it's give us your recommendations or see what we can do in expediting the permitting process. And then to this point, you're gonna get that website out there. How do we, you know, the pamphlet's a wonderful idea, there may be other ideas on how we get it, you know, traffic to your point.
Yeah.
And as we get the sewering project closer to reality, obviously, there's a lot of interaction with the business community, and you're our contacts, informal contact through that too, so.
So we get the RFP going and then be in touch again and see how we can.
Use their And we're gonna need people to go knock on doors
Right.
and sign people up.
Right.
Thanks.
Just like selling a car, Neil,
Yeah,
that's all.
yeah.
Just like selling a car.
Any other questions, comments, board?
Thank you.
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
you.
Thank you to the EDC as well.
Thanks, Lisa.
That's right, Lisa's back there. Hello, Lisa.
You're there too. All right, I'm gonna go out of order here, just because I see two quick items and the folks that need them are here. So the next item on our agenda is the budget update, and I see we have FinCom and various other people here, but we have really quick, two very quick items. So I'm just gonna knock them out and let those folks go. Actually, no one's here for NAGOG. I thought I
No,
saw
it's just
Matt.
the gallery cafe.
Okay, so we'll just do 6C first, and then we'll come back to 6A and then 6B. Welcome, Virginia. Hello.
Hi, Melissa. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Hey, I got a beautiful picture from Gallery 529 for my friend for Christmas.
I saw that your name was in our guest book, so I'm
Uh-huh.
sorry I missed you.
Yes, I just missed you, but that was great. It was a picture of Groton Hill in the fall. Groton Hill.
You
sorry,
were the
Gibbet
one
Hill.
who bought that.
I
Okay.
totally got
All
that.
right. I see Tom often, so I'll let him know that
Oh.
you're the one who got it.
Love it, love it, it's beautiful. Okay, so you're here to request a one-day entertainment license for Gallery 529. Why don't you tell us a little bit about why, what's going on?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Should I come up or can I?
Sure, yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
come
It's
on
just
up.
better for the microphone.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So what we're planning is a one-day event, and it's a kickoff actually to a whole series of future events. And the one-day event is going to be on Saturday. It's from 7 to 9 p.m. before the football game. And it's a wine tasting. Colonial Spirits out of Acton is sponsoring the wine tasting. And they're going to be focusing on their organic wines. We'll have a couple of tables set up to do crafts. We're going to have a dinner buffet, and we're also going to have, hopefully with your blessing, some live music. And it's all to benefit Loaves and Fishes. The tickets are $35 a piece. They can be purchased on our website at gallery529.com. And it's $20 of each ticket goes directly towards Loaves and Fishes. We're also going to be doing, Gallery 529 is going to be having an art show, and I'm really excited by the art show because it's going to have some of the best art that we've had before. But each piece of art is going to have an environmental twist to it. So, for instance, some of the artwork that I've gotten in so far is beautiful painting of waves crashing, but there'll be a story talking about how if we were able to harness tidal power, we could provide 1/3 of the U.S. electricity, and how, for instance, UK spends $1 billion a year on development of tidal power, and U.S. has only spent $340 million. So we lag 10 years behind other countries when it comes to developing sustainable energy sources. So it's an art show with an environmental theme. But the whole purpose of this kickoff event is that we're going to be having a series of discussions going further out, basically a call to action. So on January 29th, State Senator Jamie Eldridge is going to be coming in, and he's going to be leading a discussion on solar energy with a call to action of what we could be doing to help perhaps legislation that's out there to promote solar energy in the state. Not really sure, but it's going to be a 2-hour discussion from 2 to 4 on Sunday, January 29th. 1 hour talk with him talking about the current status and where we've come in the last 8 years. And then we'll break into groups and develop a strategy to go out and promote solar energy and whatever it is that Senator Eldridge thinks needs to be promoted and targeted, call to action type thing. So that's the first discussion, and then there'll be other ones going out every month thereafter.
So this
event is the
event
14th.
is kicking off further events
Yeah.
to come. So this is to get the publicity, to
Yep.
get interest.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, that's wonderful. I love the theme. And on this particular entertainment license request, I see both chiefs have responded no issues. Roland, no issues.
That's
No
right.
issues.
Staff have no issues.
Just about the no issues. and I know this is, you don't have time for this, so I won't go into it, and maybe in the future I'll follow it up with a letter. But, City of Boston, and I did include a link to an article of the Boston Globe, has since approved, allowing businesses that, want to have acoustic music to go ahead and do it without having to go through a licensing process. And if the City of Boston can do this type of thing, it might be something for Littleton to consider, especially as it relates to your economic development goals. I mean, I had to pay $10,000 and Gwen had to pay $4,000, but that's, water under the bridge, behind the
That's a
dam.
good suggestion, though. Maybe we could float that around and see what comments we get and see if there's any concerns, and simplify is a great idea. Can we float the idea around?
Or you could just apply for an annual license once instead of each time that you need a Friday night.
And I understand that, and this, again, I
And then
don't
we
want to
can
take
give-
your
We can
time.
give yes once
I don't want to take your,
for the
yeah.
same lifting.
But see, City of Boston has said no one has to apply for anything. They can go ahead and just do it if it's acoustic. And you would think if the City of Boston could do it, maybe Littleton might consider it, but
Send that letter.
Sure.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Virginia. Yeah, any discussion, guys? Any questions?
Nope.
I always find Whistle entertaining. I didn't realize she was operating without a license, though.
This is a one-day.
I get it, yeah.
All right. if no-
just Paul's little jabs.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to waive its requirement for a public hearing and approve a one-day entertainment license application under Mass General Law, Chapter 140, subsection 181 for Gallery Cafe, 529 King Street, Littleton, to allow live music performance on Saturday, January 14th, 2017, from 7 to 9 p.m. to benefit loaves and fishes.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, rounding back to 6A and Saturday. Let's all go back to Saturday. Storm started coming in and I was at the chess tournament at that
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
but
But we
you
think I'm
guys
waiting.
were reviewing our capital and operating budget updates. So let's see, remind me where we left off and who was kind of up next.
I think Amy, it would be better if we had conservation go first.
If there's any chance,
Yeah,
Cooper's
'cause-
coming in
She's got
at
another-
9:45, so I need to run back upstairs.
Yeah.
That's,
So Conscom.
I don't want to miss that one.
Let's do it. Let's go ahead and dig right in. Oh my gosh, I forgot my budget book.
Madam Chair, you wanna?
Share.
I've already memorized it.
Oh no, I left my budget booklet at the police station and I forgot to ask if anybody grabbed
I
that.
grabbed extra, I found some extra ones there.
That would be mine, thank you. Okay.
Can I open it?
No, I don't. Oh, sure.
Tab 6. Conservation, first one.
So I was just walking out the door when I got Keith's message, and I was like, maybe I should go, maybe I should. I was gonna go early, because I've only been
So
through
you
this
would have
once.
preferred to get over with on Saturday?
I would have preferred to get over with, that was an option. But I was gonna get there early so I could see what everybody else had to say, because I forget the protocol. So now what would you like to hear from me?
Well, give us an overview of what's on the radar, so both from a capital and operating budget, any capital requests, and then anything from an operational budget that you want to highlight to us.
We have no capital request. We are going through permitting for a 7-space gravel parking lot to service Oak Hill Conservation off of Harvard Road, which is actually what I just came down from. But we'd be applying to CPA for that and/or looking for the Oak Hill Fund, so I don't think it's really considered a capital per se. And then budget operating, last year, I was heading over and had asked for an increased budget, and we agreed we'd wait and see how it went this year also, and still heading in the same direction. The budget now is $1,000, so looking for $1,450. The biggest piece of expense in there is the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commission membership, which includes a lot of training, a lot of resource. And we also have one new commissioner, hopefully we'll be getting another one soon, and they'll be willing to do more training. And I've just been putting off, waiting until
If
next
you'd
year.
like to be a commissioner, please apply.
Yes.
We're now
Yeah, please.
we're now into
Or
a second,
one short.
second or third month
Yeah.
and advertising with no applicants.
So it's been actually a pretty busy year. The main things this year were the regulations that went into effect in August. The land grant for Williams was actually a big spurt of activity, which unfortunately we didn't get, but we might be chasing another grant on that.
And it was great to have Amy in place to be able to write the grant application
Thank
for
you,
us
Amy.
in-house.
I was hoping to be able to, not write 0 down there for grants, but I'm gonna get a 1 in there, maybe by next year. And certainly the Durkee Farm was one of the biggest applications we had. Last year.
Just taking a look through here and see. Board, any questions, comments?
Anything from FinCom?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, apologies. FinCom, I don't know if you guys want to
In fact, they
come
wanna come up.
closer? Yeah.
Maybe
We have
do that.
cooties.
I guess the only real question I had was, is there any update on the property that fell through with the state grant?
Williams.
And is that going to fall under the Conservation Commission, or is that going to be Conservation Trust land? Where are the selectmen on, do we fund it out of CPC? Do we, I mean, where are we? Have you guys discussed it at all? mean,
I don't
that's the
think
only
we've had
big
a
thing.
discussion since
No,
we.
we don't have a new deal negotiated with the seller.
I'm sorry?
We don't have a new deal negotiated with the seller. The deal that was in place was we purchased the 35 acres for 1.2 million contingent on a $400,000 grant.
Right.
And we have not renegotiated that deal.
Okay.
I expect that we will have something to bring to the
Something
board.
going forward,
Then the
okay.
question will be, how do you fund $1.2 million?
Right.
And my answer would be either I don't know, or it would be the company, or it would be Community Preservation Committee, because there's no other. You know, we were sort of tapped out at the $800,000 before. If we,
We're
don't,
adding into it,
yeah,
I can recalculate.
Or a debt exclusion.
Or
No.
debt exclusion? No?
not,
Well, yeah, there is.
well,
I'm just saying
that
that's an
is,
option.
that's
An
an
option,
option,
yeah.
but
You're not
I'm
hearing me
not,
advocate
I'm
that
not,
either.
yeah, there would have been other things that we would have recommended that for, but not this one, so.
Good prioritization. We like
Yeah,
that.
the land grant would have been 400,000. There is the Land Conservation and Water Grant Program, which is 300,000. So we could chase that one. And actually, this is just in from Ray Lyons, that Joyce agreed to cooperate with the application for the grant, provided that Littleton Conservation Trust agrees to pay for the required Yellow Book appraisal, which is $5,000.
That's yet another.
And that was kind of the issue with
potential grant
chasing.
opportunity, not the land grant that we didn't
Which is-
get.
which
It's
is
it's
gone.
perhaps the next.
The next
um,
possibility.
Possible grant that might be pursued for that land.
But, yeah, the Conservation Trust is gonna meet tomorrow night on it and see if they can come up with the appraisal costs.
Just that the fuse is burning
Oh, yeah.
between now and May, so if something's going to happen, it has to happen relatively quickly, that's all. Just so it's on your radar screen, that's all.
Yeah.
Good.
Thanks, Fred.
Well, it may not happen by May.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then what? So if it doesn't happen by May, what happens? We
Nothing.
we wait till November or the next?
Potentially.
When the seller can find someone at that
Right,
point.
either the
That's
fuse
right.
runs out or the fuse gets longer.
Right, right.
All right, so it's up to the seller.
Any other questions, comments for conservation?
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
All right,
Amy.
thank you.
Good luck upstairs.
Good luck. Okay, who's up next?
Do you want me to say Andrew Samarco down from Historic? Because he's up there right now.
Is historic on the list?
That'd be great.
If he can speak to it.
Let me see if he can get closer.
Unless you need them.
Finding more about
Yeah, if you need them for the vote, keep them.
things we have, land and
Should we have Steve go? So
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
Steve, yeah.
Good evening.
Sitting back there so patiently.
So you will be taking us through information systems.
No.
I'm joking.
But
I'm
I can tell
I'm
you about
joking.
that.
That's a joke. Like I've lost all faith in her.
The treasurer's budget, the actual departmental budget, there's really not much that's changed in their salaries, was the normal step increases plus the 2%. And the only operating expense that went up was $100 on postage, reduced, mail out all the invoices each week for the entire town on that postage bill. So, we're cutting that pretty close, I think, in FY17, so to give ourselves a little cushion in 18. And two other big pieces of the treasurer's budget. Just to remind you, the treasurer's budget is the second biggest budget in the town, beside the school department. I like to spend money, I guess.
I guess so.
Well, your budget includes the benefits for the school department.
That's true.
No, that's right.
Living off my nickel. Debt service, that's on it's the second page of the actual budget sheet. For, again, over $4 million, those are known debt service requirements that we have. It includes any short-term borrowings that we'll do during the year. We're looking in March to be in the fire station, the $6 billion for the fire station. We have a couple of things for the water department to actually be rolling over their betterment for the point. And a road bond is coming due, I think, in September of next year also. We'll be paying that down as we go along. The fire station.
Do you have a sense yet on whether any of these projected rate increases at the federal level have any impact on us, or how they are?
Certainly will, yeah.
Yeah?
Short-term rates will probably start inching up, probably something a little north of 1% for the fire station, I guess.
Before we have things in place? Yeah.
For this March. I'm talking with Eastern Bank, the long-term rates, they're starting to inch up also, with the actual yields going up too, so. We put the estimate in, I think we estimated it 5%, yeah, on the fire station. So that's still good, by the time we bond that, I'd say right now. We're still looking good with that. Okay. And the next big thing is employee benefits, and that's what I'll spend time talking about tonight. We do have an additional handout. People. Thank you. The selectmen have seen this in the past, and the personnel board has seen this in the past. I don't think the finance committee has seen it, but each year, for the past, this will be the 6th year that we do it, we send around a total compensation sheet to each town employee and town union employee. Gives them some idea of what their total compensation for the year has been and the benefits that the town pays for them. The second page after the memo, a lot of numbers that just compare 2012 through 2016 for this 5-year period. And I'll just mention a couple of numbers that jumped out at me. The very top line, number of benefit eligible employees. Again, this is for the town and the town's unions. 2012, we had 78, and we're up to 89 by the time we get to 2016. Average salary of $51,000 back then. Average salary is now $56,000, so you get about, there's a $5,200, it's probably around a little over 10% increase in those 5 years. A couple lines down, average annual total comp, was $71,000 back in 12. It's jumped $10,000 to $81,100 by the time we get to 2016. And that first percentage number right in the middle of the page, we look at total town paid benefits and other cash as a percentage of base pay. You can see it's been creeping up. Benefits paid by the town is more and more of their total compensation as we go through it. Okay?
And again, this is town, not school, right?
This is town only, not school, not light and water. The next few sheets look at the different groups that we have, and I'll walk through this first one. You can take a look at the others, because they're all basically the same. So again, this sheet goes out to each employee. It's mailed to their home. Outlines the different benefits that they receive, how much the town pays for that, how much they contribute to that, and talks about their salary for the year. And this is done on a calendar year basis. You can see that the top section, the total salary, that's the actual cash payments, other cash benefits. It differs for each of the units. You'll see, as we get into some of the unions, you'll see a lot of things that are in their contracts for stipends, clear bills, and such.
Longevity.
Uniforms, longevity. Then we get the town paid benefits, and that sums all that together, and you get total compensation. Walk through the actual form on the left-hand side. Up at the top, total salaries. So again, this is for an average employee. We're looking at the bylaw employee. You can see the base salary of just over $50,000 for a bylaw employee. Their other income section, there's not much for a bylaw employee to get, mainly longevity payments is the big piece. Then that gets to their total pay. So that's their cash that they take out, that $50,615. Going to the right, you can see the benefits, the town contribution in that first column, and the employee's contribution in the second. For the average bylaw employee, the town is paying $16,000, $16,600 in total benefit payments. To the bottom of that section is a breakdown of their total salary, time worked and paid time off. Vacation days, again, bylaw employee, 10.9 vacation days, 2.6 sick days for the year, holidays, personal days. So in this example, total paid time off was 11% of their total pay. 88% was actually time worked. To the left of that is their accrual for unused paid time off. So this is what they have reserved for the vacation time, sick time, personal days, and the short-term disability bank. And right above that, there's two percentages. Total town paid benefits and other cash benefits as a percentage of base pay and a percentage of total compensation. You can see for a bylaw employee, as a percentage of base pay, that's 34.24%. We can go through the next few pages and just take a look at those percentages as we go through. So the contract employee, there's 7 contract employees in the town. That number gets to 36.14%. The next group is police, which includes police and dispatch. You can see that number is 82%. So it jumps way up because of the other cash components that are included in their salary. If you look at their salary piece, it's under $50,000, so it's even less than the average bylaw employee. You throw in all the extras that are in their contract that they received, all the detail pay, the Quinn bill, things like that, it's an additional $24,000. So the total compensation is just under $100,000 for the average person there. Fire department goes down a bit to 48.33%, average comp just under $90,000. And the highway department at 40%, $61,000 on average. Okay. The Personnel Committee, and the selectmen know this, I think the Finance Committee may, is doing a comp and class study. So these types of things will be looked at. So that's why it's important when we're doing those types of studies, comparing ourselves to other towns, to look more on the total compensation side of things. So to take a lot of those things that are outside of base salary into account. We may pay it, another town might not. They may put it into the salary line. So just looking salaries to salaries, things can get
Not apples
skewed.
to apples. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So total compensation is a big piece. I think from what I've heard from feedback from the employees, in a lot of cases, they enjoy seeing this. I think it's a helpful tool for the employees to get, and it really sends a message, the town is paying their share of benefits for you.
That's great.
I'm gonna show my employer. So I'm gonna show my employer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't care.
I had a question, Steve, real quick. So I was just looking, you had mentioned when we look at 2012, percentage of base pay paid by the town. So what's the major reason for it going up in a flat economy, really, since 2012? So we went from 38% to the 43 plus. What's the contributing factor that has had?
Health and pension.
Yeah.
So those rates, that went up over that period of time. Is that solely
Yeah,
responsible for
12%
that?
12%
That's
a
the
year.
biggest thing, sure.
The increases, right?
Salary, yeah, I don't know, like 3 or 4 times. I mean, the benefits are going up 3 to 4 times the rate of the salary.
Yeah, so do we ever see this go down, is the question, that percentage paid? Well, can we expect to see that go down in the future? Say if a federal change takes place, like from a benefit standpoint, health standpoint.
Well, going to talk about health insurance
Okay,
right now.
okay.
I think maybe that'll answer some of your questions. So the big piece of benefits for the employees, health insurance, of course. In the past 3 years, we've seen double-digit percentage increases, 10, 12, and 12. Looking at another 12% increase potentially in this coming fiscal year. We need to do something with our health insurance. Last time we did anything as a plan change was 2012. We've been dealing with the IAC, the Insurance Advisory Committee, keeping them into the loop as to what plan changes we could possibly be looking at. We're talking with Maya. They've given us a couple of plan designs that we could possibly move into for the active employees. Again, all this is going to do is going to limit the amount of increase that we're going to see. We're going to see a premium increase no matter what. One piece that Maya has given us is potentially a 6.5% decrease off the increase. So if it's a 12% increase, you see a 6.5% decrease off that, so a 5.5%. Is that right? 5.5? Well, 7.5% increase on the, that's why I handle numbers, right? So you can see where that's going to go. It's going to go up. We've done one piece of it already. We've dealt with the retirees. There's 178 retirees for the town, spouses and retirees. We were looking at, I think it was just under an 11% increase for our retiree premiums. By changing the plan, which we hadn't done in about 8 years on the retiree side, we added $10 to their prescription copays. That took 6.5% off the premium increase. So it's savings to the town. Any plan changes, however, 25% of the total savings by law has to be returned to the affected employees. In that case, it was around $9,000 or so that we would give to a partial premium holiday for the retirees. It's like $50 per retiree or so that we're giving them. But it's going to be a savings about $28,000 to the town over time. Little things, but they add up over time.
And were we looking to do that with other, that similar type of thing? Remind me, I can't remember this conversation, but it was like, okay, that was a really good use case. Could we expand that to current employees to increase the copay?
And that's what we're
Yeah,
looking
we'll
to
be
do.
doing that, yeah.
The changes that we're gonna do with the active employees, possibly talking about higher deductibles, higher copays.
We're gonna have
All
various-
it's doing is really
Shifting
shifting
the
from a
burden.
premium-based to an out-of-pocket base for the employee. So the employee's gonna be impacted at some point as far as out-of-pocket expenses. But again, well, that's the way it is, you know, I'm sure your plans in, you know, corporate America, a lot different than what ours are right now, with deductibles and things. True?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just threw up my mouth a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
So
don't
that's
go
where
to
we
the
are with-
emergency room, because that's most expensive.
And, you know, we've done work, you know, we haven't changed the plan, but we've tried to change employees' habits over these past few years. We have a tiered hospital plan right now, whereas if you go to a Blue Cross-approved facility, Emerson Hospital, for example, with lower costs, there's no deductibles, or lower deductibles, lower copays. If you go to a Mass General, for example, it's the most expensive, more deductibles, higher copays. We've changed the habits to really go to those low-cost hospitals.
That makes sense.
We have changed habits about going to emergency rooms. We had issues with employees just going to an emergency room, for example. We've seen those costs go, we've seen the number of visits go way down. Costs, however, have gone up because the cost of going to an emergency room has gone up. We've really had probably about 2 to 2.5 years of bad claim experience. Just, you name it, we've seen it as far as cases in the town, so. And we're not talking like just employees, but it's anybody who's on the employee's plan. So that's where we are with health insurance. We won't know the rates, at least from Maya till probably towards the end of February. We do have the initial, I guess, volleys with some of the other insurers besides Blue Cross. We haven't seen anything back from them. They're waiting to get the latest data from Maya as far as our claim history, so they can go off and do their underwriting for us. So this probably hit the head probably, sometime in March or so. We'll be able to come back with some news as to what we're going to do. The other big piece, does that kind of...
Yeah. Not great news with that.
Yeah. The other big piece for benefits is, of course, retirement, pension expense. Pensions are going to go up. We have an unfunded liability of about 27 million or so after the last valuation report. Premiums, the assessment, it's not a premium. The assessment is scheduled to go up 6.5% per year until FY '25, and then 4% per year until FY '35, in which case we'll be fully funded, a few years ahead of schedule. I think state law has it to FY '38 or so that we have to be fully funded. One of the things that Middlesex is looking at is the discount rate. Of course, discount rates are coming down. So if that goes down, your liability goes up because you're assuming you're earning less on your assets in the plan. Middlesex is reducing that from 7.875, 7 7/8, down to 7 3/4 in this valuation report. And the goal in the next valuation report is to bring that down to 7 3/4.
what that's gonna do is gonna raise the liability, and all that would do, possibly could do, is extend that 6.5% payment for another year, trying not to go beyond that 2035 year. So that's pension. Our personal experience could differ from the average for Middlesex County, depending on number of employees we have, our pay increases, just the general makeup of our population. But on average, expect a 6.5% increase. And our bill right now is a little over $2 million a year, right? 2.1. So it's going to go up. OPEB. OPEB, we are funding that according to our policy. Right now, the town is putting in 1.2 million.
Almost $1.3 million for 18.
$1.3 million. The light department puts another 250,000. Water department puts in 50,000. We're getting closer to the required contribution, our annual required contribution, which is great news. As of December 31st, I have numbers here. We currently have $8.2 million set aside for OPEB. Our liability is $36 million. So we're pretty far away. We're putting money aside.
Better than we were a few years ago.
Absolutely, we're putting money aside.
Zero.
We're doing a lot better in putting money aside than a lot of other towns around us, so we should be proud of that. We're earning, let's see, so we have 8.2 million set aside. We've contributed 7.1 to town, light department, water department total. And we have total return of $1.1 million in the fund. So we're earning, we're trying to do what we can to put money aside. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, fantastic.
Any else?
Questions, comments, FinCom?
It's only money.
So we'll be.
It's almost free.
We'll be bringing, I mean, the idea is that for the May town meeting, the budget that we're requesting for group health costs will reflect the numbers that get generated, and some plan design changes that would bring the premium increase down to maybe from the 12 to 6, 7 level.
Yeah.
But there are steps that we have to go through to do that, and we have to calculate what the savings are. We meet with the insurance advisory committee about that. We bring a plan to the selectmen. You give notice to the employees under the new group health statute, which then impanels a so-called public employee committee, where the unions have 30 days to review the proposed plan and see if they can come up with an alternative mechanism to save money. We worked so closely with the affected groups the last time we did this that we had about a 2-week turnaround, that the recommendations that were brought from the IAC were unanimously adopted there, were unanimously approved here, and then so when we essentially give it back to the folks, it ends up being the same people, but instead of being an insurance advisory committee, they're called something else. And that something else, though, it's a weighted vote on the public employee committee based on the union membership. So the majority would be the teachers' union. But we expect to go through that process and be able to realize whatever savings they are in the budget that's presented to town meeting in May.
And the end result of that meeting is basically, again, according to state law, we need to give back 25% of the total savings. So it's not only the town savings, but the employee savings also, total back to the affected employees. And that's basically what the PEC would do, is figure out how to apply that 25%.
Makes sense.
So it cuts into the first year savings, but we start realizing it in year 2.
Very good. Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thanks for your patience. We're running late. Speaking of which, I see Mr. Samarco in the back of the room.
Yes.
And we've snagged you out of another meeting while you were in the building. How resourceful are we?
I know.
You want to come for? Yeah, please.
Talk about the historical commission.
That'd be wonderful.
Sure.
It's a blank page.
Yeah, we didn't actually get
Is he able to speak one?
Yeah, I know we just literally snagged you out of nowhere. Are you able to
Yes.
speak to it?
I really don't have a whole lot for you guys tonight. I could briefly kind of talk about what the commission's been doing and what we're,
This is more just about the budget.
Budget.
The budget,
Yeah.
it's a very small line item, it's $750 annually unless there's some.
Dollars?
Yes,
Yeah.
$50.
Hardly worth the trip from the third floor.
That's it.
We should take the elevator.
We gotta spend some time on this one.
Let's really scrutinize this.
I don't know if in maybe the next couple of years, we could maybe increase that up a little bit.
Well, no, of course not. But sometimes you have warrant articles, right, for the updating the register and all that sort of things. Anything going on that end?
We, well, as you know, last time around, we submitted 2 CPA articles, one to do the survey of historical resources and one to do some repairs at the old burial ground. But there are a couple of minor projects that we're also looking at doing, such as replacing historical signs on, signs on historical houses and replacing a lot of.
The older they get, don't they become more historical?
Yeah, it's part of the.
Well, some don't have any. There's actually houses that have gotten older since we've stopped issuing signs and are now in need of some. And then we have a lot of historical markers around town that have fallen into disrepair. And so,
So the extra budget you'd envision would be to do things like that?
yeah, absolutely. Even a couple $100 would be helpful to us.
Okay. And what do you use the 750 on?
We do the annual Patriots Day event. That's our big ticket item. We buy wreaths and everything else for that. And money's pretty tight after that if anything comes up. So any little bit that we can get would be very helpful.
Okay. Yep, very helpful. Any questions? I feel like we should throw them a few $100. Round it off at 1,000.
That would be great.
Let me just
You
call
got a
it.
$36 million liability. Yeah, make
Like
two,
Fred
make
says,
two.
it's only money.
Hey, 25%.
Monopoly?
Town meeting.
We'll talk about other stuff, but then
250, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. So true. So true. All right.
We have to be good stewards.
This is true.
We need those, we need those signs, though. All right, any other questions for Andrew?
Sorry to pull you out of that meeting, Andrew.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming to see us.
Oh, that'd be great.
Maybe it was more fun being here, you never know.
Of course, of
All right,
course.
we'll let you get back to it. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
You too. All right, who's up next? Who we got?
Bonnie?
Here we go.
Bonnie? All right, information systems. Just joking.
I'm doing information systems.
Oh, that's
for
true,
Nancy, too.
actually. That's not even funny. Oh. All right, what are you starting with?
I'll start with mine.
Okay.
So tab 3, just
Thank you.
start with accounting first. It's been a very busy year. Basically, though, in my budget, we presented 2 scenarios, the level staffing, which would just keep myself, Michelle, and my part-time people in place at the same number of hours. In my mission budget, I am requesting that Michelle be increased from the 30 hours that she's currently budgeted and has been for, I want to say, at least 20 years, to 35 hours. She's already a benefit eligible employee, so it wouldn't impact the fringe, greatly because she's already benefit eligible. But the impact of that is about.
Just under $8,000?
Yeah, it's about 88. Yeah, it's about another $7,000 or $8,000.
Hold on. Are we looking at the same thing? The impact of
Yeah,
that?
the impact would be $7,665 now. No.
Really? It's gonna be a tough sell, Bonnie. Okay.
She's
awesome.
Yeah.
So amazing.
In her
It's
defense,
the
the
carrying
workload in that office has doubled in the time period. And I looked through the number of transactions because I'm able to generate that through the GL. Michelle just, she takes it and takes it and takes it. This is the first year she's actually said, I can't do this in the 30 hours. And I believe her because she does a lot. So I would like to have consideration for that if possible. Everything else is level funded. There are no other issues. The audit is also locked in at the $34,000, so I don't need an increase in that. It's a 3-year contract. And I think next year is the last year on it, so we should be good through then.
Should we be getting their, speaking of audit, their report soon?
Oh, they're coming out tomorrow. They're starting my paper.
They're starting to do the
Yes.
audit.
Yes.
Oh.
They're pretty quick. They usually turn it around in about 30 to 45 days, so.
Yeah, April, I think we got it.
Okay.
And then they'll bring the report back to you guys for review. Under the tax collector,
Hey,
there's.
Bonnie, I have a
Yes.
question under yours,
Yes.
sorry. I'll be the bad guy though and ask the question. So we just hired a full-time professional person that's gonna take a lot of load off of you. But at the same time, we're asking for more hours for people in your department. So can you talk to that?
I can, actually. It was going to be at the end of the budget thing, but we have a capital item request for next year for IT conversion. Right now, our current provider is SoftWrite. You might be familiar with that name. They were purchased by another company, Acela, in the last year. We've already noticed a drop-off, I would say, in support services. They're not as responsive in answering. They used to be based right out of Westford here, so they were literally right next door. So we're noticing a delay in service. The other thing that, we're worried about, and is many other communities that are on their platform, is that they're going to, at some point, stop supporting the version that we're on and go to a newer version. So we're going to have to do a conversion at some point. There is a tremendous demand for data now. I mean, the board has asked for data that my system cannot provide. So we're manually creating a lot of things like the report that Steve Benuti just put out tonight with the employee benefits. He does that by hand. He creates that himself. That is a product that the new system that we're looking at would do automatically. And again, looking at my future planning of the department and looking at succession planning, he's going to retire in a few years. So I need to figure out how to deal with that brain drain and do the tasks that are now kind of expected and should be expected of the department. So we really need to rely on our technology being able to provide the things like that it should be able to. The software vendor that we're looking at is Munis. They are on state bid list. They are a very good company that provides financial reporting to the bulk of the communities in the Commonwealth. That's their specialty, is municipal software. It is more expensive, but they do have the products that we are lacking in, specifically an HR module. We have payroll. Payroll and HR are not the same. Human resource management is become a much more mandated field than in previous years. The state's always coming down with new things that we have to do that payroll doesn't fit. You need an HR module. And again, we're creating things manually. So there's a lot of...
What's the price tag?
Right now, we're paying annually in support about $40,000 a year for SoftWrite. For Munis, it's $111,000.
111 a year? Is there an
$111
upfront
a
as
year.
well?
For
No,
what?
that's the support. So the conversion would be about $250,000. So we're looking at a $350,000 price tag to do the conversion and have the support for that year, and then $111,000 annually after that, as opposed to $40,000 that we're paying now. So the net is,
Is this a cloud-based solution, or is it?
Yes, it is. It's a software as a
So that we don't have the
We don't have to
on-site
maintain
support
the
anymore.
server. We don't have to, we don't have to maintain our own infrastructure here. It's maintained in the cloud. So there is an offset in, I don't have to pay SoftWrite support anymore, and I don't have to maintain that server. Nancy doesn't have to maintain that server. So there are some offsetting costs. We are finalizing the true price tag. What I put in here for the capital request is the placeholder of $350,000. That would be the maximum. It's going to come down from there, but I wanted to be forthcoming with what what the total impact could
It's
be.
gonna come down because of offsets.
It's gonna come down because of offsets, and we're probably not gonna need every single module in there. There are things in there that we do better on our own.
Got it.
And the whole list is in there, you can see the details.
Yeah.
But we do need to do something, because, Mr. Glavy's been one of the big ones about having like the online checkbook. This product can do that. You can go onto the website, you can drill right into I wanna see the school budget, I wanna see the Shaker Lane one, I wanna see the accounting budget, I wanna see, what the expenses were paid for. You can drill right into it from the website. It has an employee portal, so that if you have employees looking to get information, change direct deposits, change banks, get a copy of their W-2, they log in rather than coming down to the office to.
So you guys don't have
Check
that.
for the 1990s. That's great. Exactly.
Yeah, right. It's all over the 386.
Goodness.
So this is a big project for us. It involves the whole department. So that is going to be my focus over the next 18 months, if this is approved, is getting that project done. So I'm going to rely on Michelle even more than I probably normally would.
Okay, so
to get
this
me
is
through
250 in effect capital for FY18, and an incremental 60 grand a year, just,
I would say that it's 350 in capital for the first year, because I'm going to
350.
need to run both sites. I'm going to need to run
Double bubble is what
SoftWrite
we call it.
and Munis for that year
Integration.
to get, you're going to have to run, duplicate systems to make sure it works.
Redundancy.
I think we should rename alumni SoftWrite and have them give us the
SoftWrite
SoftWrite
Field.
Thinking outside the box.
I love it.
Yeah, I like it.
SoftWrite Field.
Munis field.
Yes.
Eliminate
Yeah.
any of the concussion worries. It's good, it's a nice soft, I like it, I like it a lot.
Sorry. We knew this was coming. The existing system that we've been using has been 10 years plus. So it's served us well.
And speaking from someone, from a point of view that deals with that every single day, that's very old.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And it's done a good job. It works. It's just not giving us what we need at this point in our growth.
Looking around, I think probably Fred's the only other one who's been around long enough to remember our first software system, which was out of Quebec, Cogebec. So support involved calling people that didn't speak English.
Commodore.
Kind of like today.
Yeah, it's just not French.
Yeah.
So that is the only change really in the finance budget. In the collector's budget, there are no changes requested. They're doing a great job, managing to get the bills out on time. Their staffing level is where it needs to be. The assessors, last year, we added about $7,000 for personal property valuation. That has served us well. That brought in about $360,000 in personal property growth this year. So that is a small investment that paid off very well. So we're looking forward to continuing that. I would also say that the assessors started doing, I can't remember the exact name of the process, but they send out forms for people to list their personal property, and if they don't complete it and send it back, there's actually a fee or a fine that people have to pay. So they're kind of paying, they're creating more of a income into the general fund from that. It was kind of surprising. It was several $1,000s. The first year that we did it, and now we're getting the data that we needed, so we're getting better personal property valuation across the board. So that's worked out well. No staffing changes requested there. We did some changes last year with the retirements of Anita and Lorraine. So we kind of changed the structure. Instead of having 2 assessment analysis, we have 1 assessment analysis and a field lister who is actually out in the field quite often. I would say it created a little bit of confusion initially. I think I talked to you about it. I think the community is so used to seeing Anita and Lorraine, who had some 20-odd years each in the assessing office, that a new face doing the same duties just created a little, who's this coming to my house, So we did try and do some public outreach and just kind of remind people that there might be some new faces, and letting them know that they're out in the field. So it was kind of interesting, just with the retirements. And that's it for finance.
Questions for FinCom? No?
Already asked mine.
Your tough question.
I can do IT too. If you want.
Yes, let's do it.
Nancy apologizes, she's got hockey kids and they're keeping her busy. I think hers is the next tab, yep. So Nancy's not looking for any additional hours or additional staff this year. She has been extremely busy with some issues dealing with our phone service and our internet and email, being tied into the light departments. So the light department, because we're on their infrastructure and their backbone for network services, anytime they make a change, it affects, it can affect our systems. And then just in the last few months, they made some switching changes. The switches were getting ready to fail, they were at the end of their life, so they needed to change them. And at that point of failure, it created, they solved the problem on their end, but it created a problem on the town's end. So Nancy spent about a week and a half running around, trying to make sure that the phone lines were working. They were going up and down, depending on what they were doing with the switches. The internet was going up and down, and our email, we're all in the same system. So we've been discussing this for a couple of months now, but we really need to disengage the two systems and have our own with some redundancy built in, because what became very apparent is we had this single point of failure, and when it failed, it failed. We didn't have any redundancy built in somewhere else. So we're really, it's not the best way to have, your IT infrastructure set up. So she's meeting with Thrive right now, which is the vendor that we brought in last year, to get some pricing on what that would look like. So there will be an incremental cost requested for that. She hasn't got the final numbers yet, but it will involve more of a monthly fee increase for phone service, internet, because that's kind of how they're doing everything now with subscription-based services. She'll have that, I think, in the next week or two, so we can bring that back.
Same equipment? Same equipment? Or release the equipment from
I think it's going to be a different equipment, yeah. I think it's going to be different. The other thing that's changing, in the environment is the subscription services for things like Microsoft, and, those services need to be broken out better between light and water. Anytime somebody gets a new email address, it's another fee. So just having kind of control over those types of services that are available to employees and boards and managing that has become a big focus. So while her staffing hasn't increased, just to look at the things that we know are going to be in there for next year, the budget would increase about $18,000, primarily for expenses, about $16,000 in expenses for licensing fees that go up. She carries all of the licensing fees, so SoftWrite, she carries them for any of the permitting applications, the email exchange servers, anything that is data communication through the town, with the exception of the school. They have their own IT division. So she is requesting that $16,000. That's in the level staffing because that needs to be paid because it still provides the same level of service that we have now, or we cut subscriptions somewhere.
You may or may not be able to answer this question. Is there any opportunity, since schools are paying for licenses and things, is there any opportunity to?
She's actually looked at that, and a lot of the licensing discounts that the school gets are not available to municipalities. They're specific to schools only, and she's, kind of groused about that a little bit too. It's unfortunate that we can't, but she has looked into that when it's possible.
Hey, Bonnie, are any of those increased costs, are they decreased by the agreement we have with the light department to provide these services to us?
We don't have an agreement.
No.
The light department, they provide this stuff for free, there's back and forth on that, isn't there?
Well, the infrastructure, as an example, we pretty much disengaged all of the costs that the light department used to pay for, so that's the issue that's driving the costs up now is that the network infrastructure, it comes through the light department, through the town hall. So if they're gonna make changes that are gonna disable us, we need to get off.
Okay, but all that IT support, all that stuff, that's all separate now?
That's all separate.
Okay.
That was
That's
done
what I was
last year.
asking about.
Yeah. So she's busy. But she will be back with another update for this, probably in the next 2 weeks.
Is Thrive running through copper, or is it voice over IP?
I'm not sure.
Better name.
I think it's voice over, I want to say it's voice over IP, but
Yeah.
I
So,
There's very little copper, I know, that's utilized.
Just the government.
all right, any other IT questions?
We're waiting for the gold standard. So.
All right, Bonnie, any other items you will be?
I think that's me. I'm done.
Okay, very good. Keith?
Last for tonight is our budget. This is tab 2. There are 3 budgets that are contained in there, and first one in the spreadsheet is town council, which we're requesting $250,000 again. And we did not spend that, we have not actually spent that much for the last 2 years. You might recall, previously, we lowballed it, was it 150, or it was a low number, and we would overspend it every year, so we agreed to bring it up to a more reasonable level. So we're budgeted currently for $250,000. The projection for the request next year is the same number. Last year, we spent just under $200,000, though, for town council services. I think we're...
And the run rate this year feels okay?
I did, I went through it for December, and we're on target. This 250 number was set because in 14, we actually spent 248.
Right.
So we figured, let's set it at 250.
I forget, it must have been a litigious year that year. Then for the selectmen's budget, that includes the Clancy's position. The town administrator budget includes my position and the new assistant town administrator. The fiscal 17 budget reflects just half a year or less than half a year for the assistant, but that will for fiscal 18 have a full year's worth of assistance. So that's why you see a jump from, we're budgeted in the town administrator's budget 181 this year, it goes to 237
I just wondered where
next
our
year.
salaries then.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about too.
We just gave it up to Andrew.
Ah.
Historical Society just got
He's paying for car cigars.
it. Some white owls.
And in the budget narrative this year, if you get a chance to take a look at it, I included a running list of grants and outside numbers and outside funding that we received. I didn't even bother to strike a total, but when you look at some of the grants that we've got in Community Compact Program and our some of those grants we're sharing with other communities, but Complete Streets was almost $442,000 total this year. Green Communities, $140,000 this year. And a number of other things that we can count. And so, and we'll keep going after those state grants.
Inching towards $1 million-ish. I mean, I'm just doing public math and I shouldn't do that, but, right? 400,000, 140, 32. This is a big number, right?
I think one thing to sort of keep in the back of your mind is that the blended match is on a downward trend, and with some significant communities, the big cities jumping on board, it's likely to take a significant dip if the legislature doesn't pump a lot more money into the pie, so.
It's on the radar screen for, I know, the Mass Municipal Association and MAPC and others to advocate for a sustainable funding source for the state match for CPA funds, especially where there are so many more communities that have adopted it.
So they'll raise the personal income tax.
Yeah, all it comes full circle, yes. Okay.
Free money.
Very good. Any questions for Keith?
The water department is coming into FinCom on the 7th of February.
Yes.
Scott is actually presenting to his board on the 25th. So the 2 meetings we had scheduled prior to that, he really wouldn't be ready. So anybody's welcome to join us or whatever on the 7th, but that's when he's coming in to present.
We're meeting jointly on the 13th, right?
I'm sorry?
Tuesday, right? Are we? 17th.
The
Next Tuesday.
10th and the 17th.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting together tomorrow night, and as a group, we're getting back together on the 17th to see where we are.
If it's a matter of, I know sometimes one of the purposes of the joint meeting is to talk about budget priorities and whatever, and I know that for the selectmen's next regular meeting, 2 weeks from tonight, that's when we'll have from Bonnie more, you've got your individual requests here, but you're going to have more of an integrated presentation 2 weeks from tonight from Bonnie and a review of the capital budgets.
And
So
Saturday.
are we meeting jointly on the 17th or not? Or are you suggesting we shouldn't, Keith?
Well, I guess I put it out there that if it's, if one of the purposes is to prioritize, we're not going to be ready.
Right, I wonder if we should push the joint out to the 7th, and that way you
Great.
guys will
Yeah,
hear,
that way we
you
can go.
guys will
Love
hear
that.
Scott.
Yeah.
Good idea.
And then we can talk, we'll put him on first, and then if we have anything else to discuss, we'll do that.
Great.
Does that feel okay? So,
It's important to meet jointly, but it's important that when we do it, that it's meaningful.
it's meaningful, right. So I think that, does that work for you?
I'm sure we can stick out the one that's just calling it out.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, I mean, that's just our next meeting. and
Okay.
So we'll plan on a joint for the 7th. And
Okay, so we scratch
tomorrow
out
night
the
we'll see if we
17th.
meet on the 17th or not.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll,
Good. Well, and the one thing that came out of Saturday was it looks like there's about $800,000+ worth of requests for a new head count. You've got about $400,000+ for the paramedic program. Now, there is a funding source for that. And then there's another close to 100 for public safety with MAPS people. And then about another 300,000 for other activities
Elder
within your town services area. So, as you guys get into it, those are sort of the three nuts to look at. How much you want to support it or whatever, and then we can discuss it and we'll make our recommendations. But those are the three major things that came out of Saturday, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
good, very good.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks for
you.
coming back tonight.
Yep.
No place we'd rather be.
We feel the same way about you.
The heat's on.
Free heat.
All right, guys, let's close out this meeting. We've got two things, and I think I can summarize the next one pretty quickly unless there's a lot of discussion. So 6B, we're going back, I guess we're on track now. Nagog Hill Orchard lease. So if I may, I'd like to give a brief update to the team on this one and tell you what this is all about. So, a couple of things. So we established a agricultural working group committee. I'm on that committee. Selectman Carr is the chairman of that committee. We have met in the last year. Actually, we reorganized. Jamie Cruz was our chair. She is no longer on the committee. We reorganized. Jim has taken over as chair. We met. We've got Will Picker. We've got, oh my gosh, names aren't coming to me right now, but we've got both Pickers actually. Anyway, we've got a good group, including farmers and ourselves. We talked about what an RFP for this orchard might look like, what it should contain, and also other pieces of property in the community that we need to start thinking this way. Current state as it is right now, the RFP has not been drafted. We're not in that place. We need more time to draft that up, get it out, start the bidding process. And so here's the catch-22. When we talked to the farmers and we said, if we have to extend this lease, can we do it for 6 months or something, or what's the right timing to extend it? And their feedback was, from a farmer's perspective, if you pull the plug in the middle of the year, the person that sowed the seeds in the beginning of the year is not going to be able to harvest them and make their money back. It's not fair for the farmer, as well as the farmer coming in the middle of a season. And, so it made more sense to stick on a yearly cadence, and January is kind of, from a farming standpoint, the right time frame. So our recommendation tonight is to extend the lease because the lease is coming up and we have to do something and we're not ready to get a new buyer. So our recommendation right now is give us a little bit more time. You know, the committee's there, we're behind it, Jim's leading the charge. We just need more time to do the RFP. So, makes sense? Any questions?
Mr. Carr had called me about this.
Okay, he did give you a little.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. All right, then, if we have no questions, I'll look for a motion.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to execute a further one-year extension from January 15, 2017 to January 15, 2018
He did it, yeah. My
of the 22 June 2000 lease agreement with Nagog Fruiters Incorporated for the Morrison Nagog Orchard property on the same terms and conditions as the lease as extended.
Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that brings us to minutes approvals. How they looking this week?
Excellent.
Yeah? All right. Very
Yeah.
good.
Whoa, high praise.
Well, Clancy threw my name in there a couple of times, so he must have figured that would say.
I know how to
Key.
assuage his concerns.
All right.
I noticed that.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the meeting minutes of December 12th, 2016.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Look for one last motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks very much, folks.
Before I forget it, thank you.
Thank you.